Chapter 46, 87. Ning Xianwu explained, "This is the legendary ghost rune talisman, a very special talisman. It's said to be a talisman unique to the Ghost God clan. The Ghost God clan and the Een evil ghosts have a special connection. It's said that the Een evil ghosts won't attack Ghost God clan cultivators. The Ghost God clan's talisman that I draw will taint everyone with the Ghost God clan's aura. When the Een evil ghosts sense the Ghost God talisman's aura, they'll think that we're all Ghost God clan cultivators and won't attack us." After hearing Ning Xianwu's explanation, Lin Feng and the others couldn't help but feel incredulous. There were all kinds of races in the world. It seemed like there were all kinds of races. "Why did you use the Buddha resin to draw the ghost rune talisman?" Du Zhu asked curiously. Ning Xianwu explained, "This is because we're not Ghost God clan cultivators. Although we have the Ghost God clan's talisman to hide our identities, some extremely powerful Een evil ghosts with high intelligence might investigate us. When that happens, we might be exposed. Since the Buddha resin can restrain Een evil ghosts, when those Een evil ghosts sense the Buddha resin's aura, they'll become fearful. Coupled with the Ghost God clan's aura on us, those Een evil ghosts will most likely choose to leave." Lin Feng said, "You're really thoughtful." Du Zhu smiled and said, "Young master has a good eye for women this time. Fairy Ning isn't just beautiful, she's also very capable. She'll definitely be a good wife in the future." Ning Xianwu's face turned red when she heard that. Lin Feng glared at Du Zhu and said, "What nonsense are you spouting?" Hearing Lin Feng's reprimand, Du Zhu smiled embarrassedly. Ning Xianwu helped everyone draw the ghost rune talisman. Not long after, they heard an incomparably shrill scream from afar. When they heard the scream from afar, they were shocked. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. What was with the cries from afar? Could it be that those Een evil ghosts had appeared? "They're here," said the first Ghost Emperor. The first Ghost Emperor said he was from the Ghost clan, so his ability to sense evil ghosts was incomparable to others. Lin Feng said in a deep voice, "Everyone, hide your aura as much as possible." Everyone nodded and tried their best to restrain their auras. Not long after, more than 10 balls of ghost chi flew over from afar. Terrifying existences seemed to be hibernating within those clouds of ghostly chi. Lin Feng and the others couldn't see their faces, but they could see pairs of eerie and terrifying eyes from the ghostly chi, especially the one in the lead. He was so terrifying that even Lin Feng felt his heart palpitate. Even though Lin Feng and the others had concealed their auras, they were still able to sense the aura of the others. However, he was still discovered by those existences. Lin Feng signaled everyone not to act rashly. After glancing at Lin Feng and the others for a while, the terrifying beings quickly left. After seeing those terrifying existences leave, Lin Feng and the others heaved a sigh of relief. Ning Xianwu also had an expression of relief. Then, she became happy because her method was really useful. This made Ning Xianwu very happy. This night was not peaceful at all, because many terrifying evil ghosts had appeared in this area. The strength of those evil ghosts was simply too strong. Ordinary cultivators couldn't fight against those evil ghosts at all. Even powerful cultivators would find it very dangerous to run into those evil ghosts and spirits. Many cultivators died tragically under the attacks of those evil ghosts. Lin Feng and the others encountered several waves of evil ghosts, but fortunately, because of the ghost pattern talisman, those evil ghosts were all deceived by them, so they didn't attack them. When dawn arrived, those evil ghosts disappeared. Looks like they only appear at night. If that's the case, then we need to speed up during the day. Lin Feng said. Although the ghost pattern talisman had deceived them and prevented them from being attacked by the evil ghosts, there was no guarantee that the evil ghosts behind them would also be deceived by the ghost pattern talisman. If they were really discovered by some evil ghosts, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, Lin Feng naturally had to make preparations in advance. Everyone nodded and flew towards the depths with Lin Feng. At noon, they could already see the mysterious prison in front of them. The prison was very large. It was a circular building like a huge tube. The walls of the prison were pitch black. They didn't know what material it was made of. There were many runes on the pitch black walls. These runes were very terrifying, emitting a gloomy and terrifying aura. From time to time, they could see some corpses flying above the prison. They seemed to be patrols. Those evil ghosts actually flew out from that prison. Are they the guards of that prison? Duzu said in shock. Very likely. That prison is really strange to the extreme. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown and say, a large number of cultivators were scattered around, many of them observing the prison. Lin Feng and the others didn't know the situation of the prison, so they didn't choose to make a move now. Some people have already obtained some opportunities from inside. It's said that the responsibility of those evil ghosts is only to guard the prison. They won't enter the prison. If the cultivators have a way to break through the evil ghosts' blockade and enter the prison, then they'll be safe. A cultivator said, there's such a saying. Many people were very surprised. Yes, the cultivator nodded and said, it's said that this prison is called the Dead Souls Prison. It's a prison that has existed since the early days of the titled God era. The Dead Souls Prison was subjected to a terrifying curse, and the creatures guarding it eventually turned into evil ghosts. Their fates are tied to the Dead Souls Prison. Perhaps the power of the curse is controlling everything, so the evil ghosts will kill creatures that come close to the Dead Souls Prison and prevent outside creatures from entering. However, if someone has a way to enter the Dead Souls Prison, then the evil ghosts will no longer attack them, allowing them to search for opportunities inside. When they come out, the evil ghosts won't attack them. Duzu said, it's really strange. It seems like only the mysterious power of the curse can control all of this. Lin Feng couldn't help but nod. He also felt that Duzu's words made sense. However, what kind of existence cursed the Dead Souls Prison back then? Perhaps this would become a mystery, or perhaps the answer to this mystery lay inside the Dead Souls Prison. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chapter 4688. Seeing the cultivators flying towards the Dead Souls Prison, Lin Feng couldn't help but look in the direction of the Dead Souls Prison. He wondered if they would be able to enter the Dead Souls Prison successfully. Although the spirits had returned to the Dead Souls Prison, if they wanted to enter, there would still be a large number of spirits and ghosts blocking the cultivators. The huge prison was over 1,000 meters tall. There was a large door that had been opened. From time to time, waves of eerie and terrifying gas would spread out from it. When the cultivators flew towards the Dead Souls Prison, the spirits and ghosts flew out from the top of the Dead Souls Prison. They didn't fly out from the Dead Souls Prison's door. This made Lin Feng very surprised. It seemed like the spirits and ghosts didn't stay inside the Dead Souls Prison. Instead, they stayed at the top of the Dead Souls Prison. That place should be the entrance. However, no one knew what the inside of the prison was like. Once we enter the Dead Souls Prison, we'll be out of danger. There are countless opportunities waiting for us inside. A cultivator shouted. That cultivator's shout was like a stimulant that stimulated everyone. The cultivator's eyes turned red. For the sake of opportunities, everyone decided to go all out. Soon, they fought with the powerful spirits and ghosts. The spirits and ghosts were simply too powerful. A large number of cultivators were killed by the spirits, and the facts proved that many times hot-bloodedness alone wouldn't be enough to accomplish certain things. This was especially true for a life-and-death battle that required great strength. Hot-bloodedness alone wouldn't do. Of course, it wasn't that no one had broken through the Een spirits and ghosts. There were still some cultivators who broke through the Een spirits and successfully entered the Dead Souls prison. Those cultivators who entered naturally attracted many envious and jealous gazes. Who didn't want to enter? Unfortunately, no one had the chance to enter. More and more Een spirits and ghosts flew out. After seeing this scene, some people retreated and didn't want to take the risk. There were many cultivators like this. However, there were also some who felt that they had to act. If they were too slow, more and more Een spirits and ghosts would fly out from the Dead Souls prison. When that time came, it would be even more difficult to enter the Dead Souls prison. Therefore, a large number of cultivators soared into the sky and quickly flew towards the Dead Souls prison. They wanted to enter the Dead Souls prison. Lin Feng and the others also moved out. They mixed in with the crowd and rushed towards the Dead Souls prison. However, a large number of black bugs drilled out from the ground at that moment. Those black bugs flapped their wings and flew towards the cultivators above. There were simply too many of them covering the sky and the earth. Many cultivators were instantly engulfed by the large number of insects, and they let out incomparably shrill screams. There were also many bugs flying towards Lin Feng and the others. However, when those bugs got close to Lin Feng and the others, they scattered. This made Lin Feng and the others happy. It seemed like Ning Xianwu's insect-repelling pill was effective. Lin Feng and the others quickly rushed towards the entrance of the Dead Souls prison. However, halfway there, they were blocked by a large number of Een spirits, and a huge battle broke out. A 10-meter-tall zombie was holding a gigantic sword and was moving towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's expression changed. It was obvious that the ghost rune talisman on Lin Feng's forehead had lost its effect in this place. Lin Feng had no choice but to defend against the terrifying zombie's attack. He held the black dragon sword with both hands and swept it towards the zombie. Clang! Accompanied by an earth-shattering sound, the black dragon sword and the giant sword in the opponent's hand collided fiercely. Lin Feng suddenly felt as if a meteor had crashed into his body at high speed. The strength of this huge zombie was too terrifying. Lin Feng had no choice but to use the dragon elephant arm to fight against it. When Lin Feng used the dragon elephant arm, the huge zombie's huge sword clashed with Lin Feng's black dragon sword again. Lin Feng was unharmed. The huge zombie was sent flying by Lin Feng's black dragon sword. Lin Feng's sword a moment ago had been extremely powerful. The gigantic zombie's hands were broken from the impact of Lin Feng's sword attack. The huge sword in his hand flew out of his hand. Lin Feng didn't pay attention to the gigantic zombie, which had been blown away by his sword. He just wanted to get into the Dead Souls prison. There was no need to tangle with the huge zombie. Lin Feng continued to fly towards the Dead Souls prison. One by one, the terrifying evil ghosts charged towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng's methods were very violent. He directly used the dragon elephant arm and the black dragon sword. No matter who came, they would be sent flying by Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng quickly approached the Dead Souls prison. At this moment, he saw dozens of Een corpses surrounding Ning Xianwu. Lin Feng quickly flew over and sent an Een corpse flying. Then, he charged into the encirclement and met up with Ning Xianwu. Seeing Lin Feng's arrival, Ning Xianwu was delighted. This meant that Lin Feng cared about her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to her in such a dangerous situation. Lin Feng and Ning Xianwu charged out of the encirclement and quickly entered the Dead Souls prison. Not long later, Du, evil sovereign sage, and the two ghost emperors also charged into the Dead Souls prison. Seeing that they had all entered the Dead Souls prison, Lin Feng couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Then Lin Feng said, let's go in and take a look." The few of them nodded. Everyone charged into the Dead Souls prison. The interior of the Dead Souls prison was circular. On the outside of the circular tunnel, there were many cages. On the inside of the circular tunnel, there was a distorted space-time. Clearly, the distorted space-time led to an unknown place. It was very likely to lead to a place of death. Therefore, cultivators couldn't charge into the distorted space-time. If they did, they would definitely die. Every level of the circular tunnel had 2 staircases that led to the higher levels. At present, many of the cells on the first floor had been opened by someone. Many of the cells were scattered with skeletons. They should be the creatures that were imprisoned here in the past. However, as time went by, those creatures had reached the end of their lives and died here. Some cultivators had come here before and took away some of the items left behind by those creatures after they died. Chapter 46-89. Lin Feng's conjecture wasn't completely baseless. This was because this prison had appeared at the beginning of the epic. At that time, it was obviously the era of the titled gods. During that long period of time, great epics had passed one after another. Presumably, every great epic would give birth to countless experts. Titled gods would appear one after another, and they would be crowned as top experts. However, there would always be some terrifying forces in the world that even titled gods couldn't contend against. There seemed to be no need to imprison ordinary cultivators. This was especially so for this Dead Souls prison. It was a very extraordinary prison. Ordinary cultivators might not be qualified to be imprisoned here. Only titled gods had the right to be imprisoned in this place. Du said, "Perhaps it's really possible to imprison a large number of titled gods. However, time is the fastest way to age. These powerful beings who were imprisoned here have already died. They can't resist the erosion of time." This was a very heavy topic. Could anyone in this world resist the erosion of time? Unless they obtained the ability to live forever. However, was there really such a person in this world? Some people had very long lifespans and had even lived for many epochs. However, if they didn't obtain the ability to live forever, they would still die in the end. Therefore, ordinary cultivators were searching for a way to live until the next epoch. As for those who had transcended epochs, they were searching for a way to live forever. Lin Feng and the others didn't find anything on the first level of the Dead Souls prison. They continued to move upwards. Many cultivators had already arrived at the Dead Souls prison. These cultivators were all searching for possible opportunities in the Dead Souls prison. When they arrived at the 10th level, they still didn't find anything. When they arrived at the 11th level, a cold light slashed over. An illusory figure wielding an illusory bone knife slashed at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was very surprised. This was an Yin spirit. A Yin spirit had actually formed on the 11th level. He dodged the Yin spirit's attack and then flicked his finger. A Buddhist light entered the Yin spirit's body. Buddhist divine abilities, powers, magic treasures, and so on were all used to restrain these evil ghosts. Therefore, after the Yin spirit that had ambushed Lin Feng fused with the power of Buddhism, its body spontaneously combusted. In the blink of an eye, he was reduced to ashes. Why would Yin spirits appear in a place like this? Isn't there supposed to be no Yin spirits in the Dead Souls prison? Du asked doubtfully. Lin Feng said, "It's not that they won't appear. It's just that those evil ghosts won't enter the Dead Souls prison. However, don't forget what kind of place the Dead Souls prison is. So many powerful creatures have died in this place. Obviously, many powerful creatures still have resentment. It's not strange for their souls or corpses to mutate after death and eventually turn into evil ghosts. Ning Xianwu nodded and said, "That's right. I think so too. The Dead Souls prison is like a fortress. It's extremely difficult for people outside to enter. The evil spirits inside probably want to leave as well, but they're trapped here. It's even more difficult for them to leave." Battles broke out on the 11th floor from time to time. It was a battle between many cultivators and the evil spirits. However, the evil spirits on the 11th floor weren't particularly strong. It was obvious that the higher they went, the stronger the evil spirits they encountered. At this moment, the dark token vibrated violently. Something above the Dead Souls prison was attracting the dark token. Lin Feng and the rest climbed up floor by floor. The cages on the lower 50 floors had already been opened. Everything inside had also been looted. The evil spirits on the lower 50 floors weren't particularly strong. Therefore, the number of cultivators who died was relatively low. When Lin Feng and the rest arrived at the 51st floor, they instantly felt that something was different. The evil spirits on this floor were extremely terrifying. There were many cultivator corpses lying on the ground. It seemed that the number of people who died here wasn't small. More than 10 skeletons charged over and fought with Lin Feng and the rest. It wasn't easy for them to disperse the skeletons' bodies. However, what made Lin Feng and the rest extremely depressed was that the skeletons quickly reformed their bodies. Seeing this, Lin Feng and the rest couldn't help but change their expressions abruptly. "Undead, undead," Evil Dominator Holy said in a grave voice. Lin Feng said, "Hurry up and leave this place." Everyone nodded and rushed to other places. Because many cultivators had died here, Lin Feng and the rest collected the dead cultivators' storage rings. There should be a lot of good things in their storage rings. In fact, Lin Feng and the rest wanted to open a few cages that hadn't been opened yet. However, because there were already people who came before them, they saw that the cages had already been opened. Lin Feng and the rest went all the way to the 70th floor of the Dead Souls prison. This floor was filled with the thick smell of blood. Clatter-clatter sounds came from not far away. In the darkness, undead knights riding on dragon horses came over. When they saw the undead knights, Lin Feng and the rest couldn't help but be shocked. Even the undead knights had appeared. Clearly, this floor was even more terrifying. "Charge!" An undead knight said coldly. Following that, a large number of undead knights quickly charged towards Lin Feng and the rest. The two sides clashed. These undead knights were very terrifying. Lin Feng and the rest were in a bad situation under the attacks of the undead knights. In the end, they retreated from the 70th floor and returned to the 69th floor. The undead knights on the 70th floor are already so powerful. I can't imagine how powerful the creatures above are. Anyway, we've already obtained the storage rings of so many dead cultivators. Those people must have collected a lot of good things here. In the end, it's all a wedding dress for us. Now we can retreat." Duzu said. The rest naturally didn't have any objections. Everyone looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "You guys go out first. I'll go up and take a look myself." Lin Feng had the token of darkness here. Therefore, Lin Feng wanted to go up and see what secrets were hidden behind the token of darkness. Ning Xianwu knew what Lin Feng was going to do. She said, "Let's leave. There's no need to find out the secret behind the token of darkness. It's too dangerous." Lin Feng said, "Don't worry. It'll be fine. It's more convenient for me to act alone. If we encounter any danger, we can retreat in time." Duzu said, "I'll go with you. That way, we can look after each other." Lin Feng said, No need. I can go by myself. Seeing that Lin Feng was insistent, Du Zhu could only give up. Du Zhu and the rest walked out of the Dead Souls prison. Chapter 4690. Kid, you actually dare to come back? Are you here to die? A group of terrifying Death Knights sneered when they saw Lin Feng. These Death Knights were extremely intelligent. Thus, they were no different from ordinary undead cultivators. However, they were restricted by the rules of the Dead Souls prison, so they couldn't leave the 70th floor, let alone leave the prison. Seeing Lin Feng return to the 70th floor, a group of Death Knights chased after Lin Feng. F*CKU, why are you chasing me? Don't chase me. Lin Feng couldn't help but shout. He didn't stop to fight with the Death Knights. Instead, he turned and ran. These Death Knights were extremely terrifying. Lin Feng didn't want to get into a fight with them. Moreover, Lin Feng's goal was to find out the secret of the Token of Darkness. He had heard from Ning Xianwu that the Token of Darkness was the key to opening the core of the Dead Souls prison. Therefore, the Token of Darkness was definitely an extremely important item. More and more Death Knights appeared behind him. All of them were filled with killing intent. Although they were extremely fast, they were still slower than Lin Feng. Thus, when the Death Knights chased after him, Lin Feng was still able to handle them with ease. How could it be so easy to catch up to him? Not long after, Lin Feng saw the stone steps to the 71st floor. He quickly rushed to the top. Damn it! A group of Death Knights stopped at the stone steps and looked coldly at Lin Feng, cursing in a low voice. They couldn't climb the stone steps, so they could only watch as Lin Feng climbed up the stone steps. There was nothing they could do about it. Ha ha! See you later. Lin Feng waved at the group of undead spirit knights and walked up. He arrived at the 71st floor. The 71st floor was shrouded in black fog. Heavy footsteps could be heard from the black fog. Lin Feng frowned. Something seemed to be walking towards him. Not long after, Lin Feng saw the creature walking towards him. It was a huge monster that was over 10 meters tall. His body looked bloated. Its body was covered in crocodile-like scales. It had the eyes of an ox, the nose of a dragon, the ears of a tiger, and the tail of a crocodile. Its claws were extremely thick, and it held a mace in its hand. Lin Feng didn't know what kind of monster it was, but obviously, he was also the incarnation of a dead cultivator. How strange! Such a weak cultivator was actually able to reach the 71st level. This is truly unbelievable. The monster stared coldly at Lin Feng and swung his mace at Lin Feng. Lin Feng, on the other hand, held the black dragon sword in his hand. The strength of the dragon elephant arm burst out in an instant and swept towards the opponent's mace. A loud bang was heard. Lin Feng's black dragon sword and the terrifying existence's mace collided fiercely. Then Lin Feng felt a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas, ruthlessly smashing into his body. His body was sent flying. Damn, this guy's strength is so terrifying. Lin Feng's face was filled with disbelief. After he used the dragon elephant arm 6 times, he had never been defeated. But now, he was actually sent flying by that monster. This was indeed somewhat unbelievable. After all, the power of the dragon elephant arm 6 times was so tyrannical. How can a human like you have such great strength? The monster couldn't help but be shocked. His race's physical body was unparalleled. When he was young, he could already blow up a planet with a punch. He was definitely one of the races with the most terrifying physical body in the history of the era. However, surprisingly, he had only just managed to suppress Lin Feng. This kind of suppression, it wasn't a crushing suppression, because if it was a crushing suppression, Lin Feng would have been injured just now. But in reality, Lin Feng didn't suffer any injuries. Hee, are you surprised? I won't tell you. Lin Feng grinned and said, Brat, I'm going to smash you into pieces. The terrifying existence roared and pounced towards Lin Feng. The mace waved and smashed towards Lin Feng again. The power of this guy's mace was incomparably terrifying. Therefore, Lin Feng had no choice but to be cautious. Lin Feng waved the dragon elephant arm 6 times and swept it towards the monster's mace. Clang! Along with the sound of the violent collision, there was a loud bang. Lin Feng and the monster collided once again. Lin Feng was sent flying again. Lin Feng frowned. He would be suppressed by this guy if it was just a physical collision. Therefore, Lin Feng planned to use a combination of physical confrontation and sacred art confrontation to deal with the monster in front of him. Roar! At this moment, a roar came from afar. Then, the ground shook violently. One terrifying monster after another pounced towards Lin Feng. The monsters that were rushing over were all in cahoots with the monster in front of him. After seeing those monsters, Lin Feng's expression couldn't help but change slightly. A single monster was already so terrifying, let alone a dozen monsters working together. How terrifying would that be? Lin Feng's principle was to fight if he could win. If he couldn't win, he would run. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't even think about it and turned around to run. If you have the guts, don't run. When the monster saw Lin Feng running forward, it immediately shouted loudly. He shouted as he chased after Lin Feng. Aren't you running behind me? If you have the guts, don't run. You're talking about yourself. Lin Feng said. The monster was so angry that its entire body trembled, and said, You're a coward. You only know how to run when you can't win. Lin Feng scolded. Damn it, you guys are attacking me together. Why wouldn't I run? Tell those bastards behind you to stay away. This young master will torture you to death in a matter of minutes. The monster sneered and said, Are you out of your mind? I have more people on my side, so of course I'll choose to gang up on you. Why should I tell them to stay away? Damn, Lin Feng couldn't help but curse. He originally thought that this guy wasn't very smart, but now it seemed that he was wrong. This guy's brain was definitely very smart. He couldn't underestimate this guy. Roar. Roars came from the front as 5 or 6 monsters charged over with maces in their hands. These monsters blocked Lin Feng from the front and back. Let's see how you're going to run. The monster behind him sneered. Lin Feng took out the Ho-E bow and shot out dozens of energy arrows in succession. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A series of energy arrows shot towards the monsters in front of them. The energy arrows shot out by the Ho-E bow were also extremely terrifying. Moreover, there were so many of them that the monsters didn't dare to be careless. They swung their maces to block the incoming energy arrows. Lin Feng took advantage of this opportunity and quickly rushed out of the encirclement of the monsters. Lin Feng saw that not far away was the staircase that led to the 72nd floor. He rushed over and quickly climbed to the 72nd floor, successfully escaping from the monsters. After reaching the 72nd floor, Lin Feng felt many gazes looking at him. He looked ahead and saw many terrifying experts. The mummified old man, the moon god, the great demon Yu, and other experts were all here. Chapter 46, 91. Before Lin Feng, more than a dozen cultivators had arrived. These cultivators, all of them, were powerful. Their auras were terrifying. Lin Feng only recognized some of them. There were also some that he didn't know. Lin Feng guessed that they were all true immortals. In addition to these cultivators, Lin Feng also saw 7 creatures from the Black Sand Devil Prison. However, the ruler of the Black Sand Devil Prison wasn't here. Many people looked at Lin Feng with interest. However, Many people's eyes revealed coldness and killing intent. For example, Lin Feng knew the 8-level palace patriarch, the Black Sand region patriarch, and the Weak Water region patriarch. In addition, Lin Feng also knew the Chu clan patriarch. This person wielded the six-eyed sky destroyer sword, an ancient weapon. Lin Feng didn't know the rest. The ones who showed coldness and killing intent toward Lin Feng were the 8-level palace patriarch, the Black Sand region patriarch, and the Weak Water region patriarch. The moon goddess was calm when she saw Lin Feng. Did she think of Lin Feng's ancestor, the master of gods? The great demon, you looked at Lin Feng with a smile. However, Lin Feng felt that this woman's smile didn't have good intentions. It was no wonder that Lin Feng had such thoughts. His relationship with the great demon was like fire and water. Reckless fool, you actually came to this place to court death. The Black Sand region patriarch looked at Lin Feng indifferently. He stepped forward, wanting to kill Lin Feng. You want to attack me? Don't you have any shame? Lin Feng said sarcastically, You're courting death. The Black Sand region patriarch was so angry that his face was ashen. Experts like them naturally cared about their reputation. Being humiliated in public by Lin Feng naturally infuriated him. His killing intent toward Lin Feng was also very strong. Little Yaya, come and help me kill this guy. Lin Feng looked at the great demon Yu. Both great demon Yu and Moon God were shocked. Moon God quickly regained her senses. Lin Feng wasn't talking to her. She was the junior apprentice sister of the Master of Gods, as well as the junior apprentice sister of ancestor Lin Feng. However, her status was there. If Lin Feng dared to casually use some teasing titles to call her, she would definitely be punished. How could the moon goddess let Lin Feng off so easily? Lin Feng was well aware of this. If he could avoid provoking Moon God, then he would. Even though the moon goddess had said that she wouldn't attack the descendants of the sovereign emperor clan because of the agreement they'd made back then, who knew if the moon goddess would go back on her word if he angered her? As for the great demon Yu, it was different. The great demon Yu and Lin Feng were enemies, so there was nothing wrong with teasing this woman. You want me to make a move? Sure, come over here and swear to be my male slave. I'd love to train a handsome, talented, and noble male slave like you. It'd make me feel very refreshed. The great demon Yu giggled as she looked at Lin Feng. She was a seductive woman. No one knew what she was thinking, and the things she did were often extremely unexpected. Lin Feng fiercely scraped the great demon Yu's proud figure. Then he inwardly shouted, Great demon Yu, just you wait for this young master. I'll subdue you sooner or later. Then I'll make you kneel on the ground and sing conquer. Lin Feng ran towards the old man who looked like a mummy. The mummified old man stood there alone. Even the moon god and the great demon Yu had to put some distance between him and the old man. It was clear that even as powerful as they were incomparably afraid of the old man. Because the mummified old man was simply too powerful, no one dared to provoke the mummified old man. Lin Feng and the old man had a relationship. This was a backer that Lin Feng could borrow. Therefore, when everyone saw Lin Feng run to the old man's side, and that the old man didn't chase Lin Feng away, many people revealed looks of disbelief. Even the moon goddess and the great demon you couldn't help but ponder. The Black Sand region's forefather's expression became extremely unsightly. He stood in place, unable to advance or retreat. He was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. After all, he didn't know what the relationship between Lin Feng and the old man was. If he attacked Lin Feng now and offended the old man, the ancestor of the region of Black Sand knew that he would die. However, if he didn't attack, it would be a bit embarrassing. However, between dignity and life, the Black Sand region's forefather chose life without hesitation. He didn't attack but retreated, although he knew that if he attacked Lin Feng, the old man might ignore him. He didn't dare to take the risk. Old fart, what a piece of trash. Look at how scared you are. You should have carried a turtle shell. Lin Feng looked at the Black Sand region's forefather mockingly. Since they had already shed all pretense of cordiality, there was no need to be polite with the other party. Many people looked at the Black Sand region's forefather with gloating expressions. The surrounding experts' methods of adding insult to injury were naturally extremely superb. One look from them could make the Black Sand region's forefather feel endless humiliation. This made the Black Sand region's forefather's killing intent towards Lin Feng even more intense. However, the Black Sand region's forefather endured and waited for an opportunity to attack. At this time, Lin Feng's gaze looked towards the depths. This level was a huge platform. In the depths of the platform, there was a huge palace. On both sides of the palace stood an evil god. Although the two evil gods were just statues, they were lifelike, as if the real evil gods had descended. The aura of the two evil gods made one's hair stand on end. At this moment, the palace door was closed. Lin Feng guessed that before he arrived, these people had already tried to open the palace door. However, they failed. Lin Feng knew that the reason why they failed was because they didn't have a token. The token was the token of darkness. This token was with him, so the others naturally couldn't open it. Moreover, Lin Feng could clearly feel that after arriving here, the fluctuations emitted by the token of darkness were even more intense than before. The reason why it emitted such intense fluctuations was because they had arrived at their destination, right? Buzz. Suddenly, the token of darkness flew out on its own. Then, the token of darkness floated above Lin Feng. F***CK. Seeing the token of darkness fly out on its own, Lin Feng immediately cried out gloomily. He didn't want the token of darkness to fly out on its own, because that would expose him. Originally, Lin Feng thought that after a period of time, these experts still couldn't open the palace door in the depths of the palace and would take the initiative to leave. At this time, he would take action. At that time, if there were any treasures inside, they would all be his. But now, it seemed that this wish was going to fall through. That thing is, Chapter 4692. All of the people present were extremely intelligent. Every single one of them was very knowledgeable. Therefore, when they saw the token of darkness, they instantly associated it with the palace in the depths of the palace. Lin Feng grabbed the token. He had been refining it for a long time, so Lin Feng had already formed a connection with it. Hence, he could still control it. Little brother Lin, you're really a child of fortune. You actually brought the token to open the palace. Tell me, how should we thank you? Great demon, you smiled at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "It's easy to thank me. Let's find some time to dual cultivate. That's the best way to thank me." The great demon you smiled and said, "Okay, I like handsome little guys like you." Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. Great demon, you was indeed a demonic cultivator. She was really open-minded. Kid, there's no need for us to say anything more. Go and open the palace's door. An expert said. Lin Feng knew that since the token had been exposed, he had no choice but to open the palace's door. This made Lin Feng feel rather depressed. He wondered if he would be able to snatch some good stuff after opening the palace's door. After all, the others were all at least true celestial cultivators. Lin Feng couldn't compare to them. He was still young and inexperienced. Lin Feng walked toward the palace. The mummified old man didn't move, and the others didn't dare to move either. Hence, they could only stand there and watch. When Lin Feng arrived in front of the two fiend statues. A look of surprise appeared on his face. Then he looked at the token in his hand. "Open the palace's door." Lin Feng said to the token. The token flew out and hovered in front of the palace's door. At this moment, the token came to life and vibrated violently. Dense runes appeared on it, each of them mysterious and unfathomable. The door of the palace seemed to have a special reaction to the token of darkness, so when the runes on the token of darkness awakened, dense runes also appeared on the door. Those runes were also extremely mysterious. Every single rune vibrated with an intense wave of energy. The two waves connected together. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The door of the palace began to shake violently. After seeing this scene, everyone's eyes couldn't help but light up, because the door of the palace was really about to be opened. This made everyone look forward to seeing what would happen when the doors of the palace opened. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The door of the palace was still shaking violently. Not long after, the door of the palace opened on its own. Lin Feng quickly rushed into the palace. He saw that there was a huge altar in the middle of the palace. 7 balls of light floated above the altar. After seeing the 7 balls of light, Lin Feng's eyes suddenly lit up. The things that appeared here were definitely no small matter. Maybe it was some kind of heaven-defying treasure. Naturally, he couldn't help but be excited. Lin Feng quickly flew toward the 7 balls of light. But the mummified old man was the fastest. He was the first to reach the altar and took one of the balls of light. But Lin Feng didn't know what was in the ball of light. The mummified old man's goal was very clear. He only took what he needed. As for the other 6 balls of light, he didn't take them. After taking what he needed, the mummified old man disappeared on the spot. He had always been mysterious, and Lin Feng felt that he seemed to be preparing for something all these years. But Lin Feng couldn't tell exactly what he was preparing for. After the mummified old man left, the remaining 6 balls of light directly soared into the sky and flew outside. Seeing this, Lin Feng's face changed slightly. He quickly took out the heaven swallowing jar. This treasure released a powerful devouring power and enveloped one of the balls of light. Then it swallowed that ball of light. The moon god locked onto one of the balls of light and quickly flew over and successfully took it. The great demon, you also took one of the balls of light. The 4th ball of light was taken by the Chu family's ancestor with the ancient weapon. The other 2 balls of light were taken by 2 terrifying creatures in the Black Sand Devil prison. Whether it was the moon god, the great demon Yu, or the Chu family's ancestor with the ancient weapon, or the terrifying creatures in the Black Sand Devil prison, they were all existences that even true immortals didn't dare to casually provoke. They took one of the balls of light, so the other experts could only be envious. They didn't dare to attack them. But Lin Feng was different. Lin Feng was just a junior. He took one of the balls of light, so he would naturally be targeted by others. Not to mention, the mummified old man had already left. Now Lin Feng didn't have any experts behind him. What could he use to fight them? The Black Sand region's ancestor, the Weak Water region's ancestor, the 8 Extreme Palaces' ancestor, and 3 other true immortals that Lin Feng didn't recognize flew toward Lin Feng. The remaining true immortals and a few creatures of the Black Sand Devil prison who hadn't taken anything didn't make a move. Not everyone was as shameless as that. Some top experts clearly disdained to deal with a junior. Little brother Lin, quickly come to Big Sister's embrace. Big Sister will protect you. The great demon Yu smiled at Lin Feng with a gloating expression. That woman knew Lin Feng's social status. She knew who Lin Feng's ancestor was. Even though she wanted to kill Lin Feng, in the end, She didn't do it because she thought having Lin Feng as a slave was more interesting. Much more interesting than killing Lin Feng. Lin Feng cast a sidelong glance at the great demon Yu's mesmerizing figure. He ignored the great demon Yu. Instead, he looked at the 6 true immortals and said, "All of you are experts who have lived for at least tens of millions of years or even hundreds of millions of years. Are you going to attack a junior, like me?" The Black Sand region's ancestor sneered. "Of course we won't attack you. If you know what's good for you, hand over what you have and kill yourself. That way, you can die with dignity." The other 5 true immortals also looked at him with cold eyes. They didn't say anything, but they silently agreed with the Black Sand region's ancestors' words. They didn't want to do it themselves. If Lin Feng killed himself, they could at least preserve their reputation. Lin Feng's expression turned extremely gloomy. These 6 true immortals were truly shameless. It seemed that they wouldn't let this matter rest today. If he was surrounded by 6 true immortals, he'd have to be a transcendent saint expert. Otherwise, anyone else would feel despair. Chapter 46, 93. Lin Feng knew that the 6 true immortals must have thought that they could take him down for sure. In fact, the others, such as the moon goddess, the great demon Yu, and the other experts thought so too. No one would think that they could survive under the siege of 6 true immortals. It was only natural for them to think this way. The moon goddess and the great demon Yu looked at Lin Feng with great interest. They wanted to know what Lin Feng was going to do in such a dangerous situation. How was he going to deal with it? Would Lin Feng ask them for help? "You 6 old farts, have you lived for so long in vain? Now, yours truly will give you a chance. Scram as far as you can. Otherwise, yours truly will beat you up until you kneel and beg for mercy." Lin Feng looked at the 6 real celestial immortals mockingly. He sounded extremely arrogant. Lin Feng smiled mockingly. The 6 true immortals were stunned. Then, their faces turned extremely gloomy. Lin Feng, a young man, was surrounded by 6 real celestial immortals. He actually scolded the 6 true immortals right to their faces. This made them feel incredulous. Everyone had the same thought in their minds. Did this brat not want to live anymore? The 6 true immortals were not the only ones who felt incredulous. The rest of the experts were also in disbelief. No one would have thought that Lin Feng would scold the 6 true immortals. Wasn't this a little too daring? What the hell is this guy thinking? The great demon, you could not help but mutter. She really wanted to pry open Lin Feng's head to see what Lin Feng was thinking. The moon goddess could not help but frown slightly. She was also trying to guess what Lin Feng was thinking. Could it be that he knew that he was going to die? So he decided to go all out? The moon goddess felt that it might be possible. Otherwise, how could she explain everything that was happening before her eyes? The other true immortals and the beings of Black Sand Devil Prison who were watching the show also looked at Lin Feng and the 6 true immortals. They were looking forward to what would happen next. Lin Feng actually dared to be so rude to the 6 true immortals. How would the 6 true immortals deal with Lin Feng later? Courting death, courting death, courting death. The 6 true immortals could not help but shout coldly. They felt that their dignity was being challenged. This was something they absolutely could not accept. To be humiliated like this by a junior, this junior had to die. Otherwise, they would not be able to quell the anger in their hearts. All 6 true immortals took action, channeling their magic powers. Clearly, the 6 true immortals were infuriated, wanting to kill off Lin Feng. The 6 true immortals will probably instantly kill off this kid. No? A true immortal expert said. It wasn't without reason that he felt that Lin Feng would be killed in an instant. After all, the 6 true immortals were simply too powerful. Even though Lin Feng might have some extraordinary means, he was still unable to withstand a single blow from the 6 true immortals. Therefore, in everyone's opinion, Lin Feng was definitely going to die. But just as the 6 true immortals were channeling their powers, an extremely terrifying aura suddenly surged in from outside. Rumble! Rumble! Following that, a loud sound shook the heavens, and the ground shook violently. What's going on? Many people's faces were filled with confusion, not knowing what was going on. Everyone looked outside. Surprisingly, the 2 stone statues walked in. When they saw the 2 stone statues, everyone's face was filled with disbelief, because they realized that the 2 stone statues that walked in were actually the evil god stone statues that guarded the main hall. The evil god stone statues had actually come back to life. This was too strange, wasn't it? Kill them! Lin Feng looked at the evil god stone statues, then gave the 2 evil god stone statues an order. These 2 evil god stone statues were summoned by Lin Feng. At the same time, these 2 evil god stone statues were also Lin Feng's trump cards. Previously, when Lin Feng had passed by the evil god stone statues with the token of darkness in his hand, he had sensed a very special fluctuation from them. That fluctuation was very similar to the fluctuation of life, and Lin Feng had a strong thought in his mind. When he used the token of darkness, it would be very easy for him to awaken the 2 evil god stone statues. Since the Dead Soul's prison was so extraordinary, the evil god stone statues that guarded the highest level of the Dead Soul's prison must also be extremely terrifying existences. Therefore, Lin Feng felt that once the 2 evil god stone statues were awakened, they might explode with unimaginable power. Now, the 2 evil god stone statues had been awakened by Lin Feng. Next, he would have to see if the 2 evil god stone statues could suppress the 6 true immortals. Lin Feng was quite confident in the 2 evil god stone statues. When the 2 evil god stone statues heard Lin Feng's order, they let out a low roar. Holding stone swords in their hands, they attacked the 6 true immortals. With a slash of their swords, sword energy filled the sky. The densely packed sword chi enveloped the 6 true immortal experts. The sword energy seemed to form a sea of swords. Boundless sword chi slashed towards the 6 true immortals. The 6 true immortals' faces changed slightly. Facing the attack of the 2 evil god stone statues, they didn't dare to be careless. The 6 true immortals took out powerful magic treasures one after another, and then each of them unleashed an extremely powerful attack. The 6 true immortals joined forces to attack the 2 evil god stone statues. However, in the first collision, the 6 true immortals suffered a great loss. The 6 true immortals' attacks were broken by the 2 evil god stone statues' sword energy. Then, the 2 evil god stone statues' sword energy continued to slash towards the 6 true immortals. The 6 true immortals were greatly shocked, and they quickly took out their defensive magic treasures to block the 2 evil god stone statues' sword energy. Even so, the 6 true immortals were still sent flying by the evil god stone statues' sword energy. Then the 6 true immortals all spat out mouthfuls of blood. Heavens! These 2 evil god stone statues are actually so terrifying. When they saw the battle strength of the 2 evil god stone statues, the other true immortals who were watching the show all revealed expressions of disbelief. Those were 6 true immortals. What kind of terrifying existences were they? But the 6 true immortals were still injured by the 2 evil god stone statues. It was simply too inconceivable. Just what is the origin of these 2 evil god stone statues? The true immortals who were watching the battle couldn't help but feel puzzled. They were all very knowledgeable, but they had never seen such powerful stone statues. These weren't 2 evil god stone statues, but pure stone statues. Yet they were so terrifying. It was truly inconceivable. Therefore, Chapter 46, 94. Ahaha! Amazing! Really amazing! These two evil god stone statues are really too powerful. Seeing the two evil god statues display their divine might, Yi Zichen was stunned. Lin Feng immediately laughed out loud. The power of these two statues was really too terrifying. He couldn't help but feel extremely happy. Even the 6 true immortal experts were injured. Therefore, it was really hard to imagine how powerful these two statues were. Moreover, Lin Feng could clearly sense that the two statues had yet to display their full power. If they were to release their full power, it would be even more terrifying. Lin Feng continued to give orders to the two statues. Naturally, he wanted to kill the 6 true immortal experts. These 6 true immortals were all shameless people. Normally, it wouldn't be easy to kill them. It wasn't easy to find a chance to kill them. Lin Feng naturally wanted to grasp this opportunity well. Under Lin Feng's command, the two statues continued to pounce towards the 6 true immortals. The 6 true immortals had just been injured by the stone statue of the evil god. Therefore, all of them were deeply shocked. They didn't think that the 2 evil god stone statues would be so terrifying. It was just 2 stone statues. Why were they so powerful? The 6 true immortals couldn't understand. Seeing the 2 statues pouncing towards them again, the 6 true immortals had the intention to retreat. Although it was very embarrassing, it was better than losing their lives. Go, the 6 true immortals said in a deep voice. All of them quickly fled towards the outside. Seeing that the 6 true immortals wanted to escape, Lin Feng hurriedly used the void formation technique. Dense array runes appeared in the void. Those array runes blocked the 6 true immortals' escape route. However, the 6 true immortals were simply too powerful. Therefore, they directly tore apart Lin Feng's array seal. Then, they fled in an extremely sorry state. Lin Feng knew that it was extremely difficult to kill the 6 true immortals. Therefore, allowing the 6 true immortals to escape was also within Lin Feng's expectations. Lin Feng didn't care about the others. His gaze was fixed on the 2 statues. These 2 statues were simply too powerful. Only he didn't know if he could capture them. If he could, then he would have 2 true immortal level guards by his side. Thinking of this, Lin Feng immediately became excited. Lin Feng tried to capture the 2 statues into time and space. However, the 2 statues stood there without moving. Clearly, Lin Feng's wish to capture the 2 statues was completely in vain. However, Lin Feng didn't give up. He sent his magic power into the 2 statues and began to form a blood bond with them. While the rest of the people left, the moon goddess finally left, but before she left, she glanced at Lin Feng meaningfully. Great demon, you was the last. Great demon, you glanced at Lin Feng and walked outside. When she passed by Lin Feng, she suddenly exploded and sent a palm towards Lin Feng. Lin Feng knew that, great demon, you had ill intentions towards him. Therefore, he was prepared. The 2 statues that stood there motionlessly waved the stone swords in their hands and slashed towards Great Demon Yu. Great Demon Yu's cultivation had recovered to the true immortal realm. However, she was still far from her peak. Clearly, there was still a big gap. Faced with the attacks of the 2 evil god statues, Great Demon, you didn't dare to be careless. She quickly retreated and dodged the attacks of the 2 statues. However, the stone swords in the hands of the 2 statues slashed at empty air. Great Demon you, do you think I didn't guard against you? I've been guarding against you for a long time. I think you're just lacking training. After I subdue you, I'll slowly train you and turn you into an obedient slave. At that time, I'll definitely feel a great sense of accomplishment. Lin Feng looked at Great Demon Yu with a sneer and said, Great Demon Yu charmingly smiled and said, This servant also wants to train you into a male slave. Let's wait and see. Lin Feng said with a sneer. Great Demon Yu knew that now that Lin Feng has two statues protecting him, it would be difficult to deal with Lin Feng. Therefore, she decided to leave. Great Demon Yu turned around and rushed outside. But at this moment, a loud rumbling sound was heard. The huge door of the palace quickly closed. Seeing this scene, Lin Feng and Great Demon Yu's expression suddenly changed. Clearly, this place is about to undergo a change. Break! Great Demon Yu leaped out and coldly shouted. Then, she slapped the palace door with her palm. Bang! Great Demon Yu's tyrannical palm fiercely slapped the palace door. However, the palace door didn't suffer any damage. Seeing this situation, Great Demon Yu's expression became even more unsightly. Lin Feng's expression also became incomparably solemn. Rumble! Rumble! The floor under their feet suddenly shook violently. Bang! Next, the center of the floor directly collapsed. Then, a huge beam of light rushed out. That beam of light was a beam of light that rushed out from below. Originally, it stretched from the first floor to the 71st floor. However, it stopped at the 72nd floor. It was a beam of light condensed from space-time energy and space-time law. It was very terrifying. Any cultivator who was sucked into it would definitely be transported to an unknown place. Of course, it was also possible that their bodies would be torn apart by space-time energy or space-time law before they could be transported out. Lin Feng and Great Demon Yu frowned slightly and looked at the space-time beam of light. Both Lin Feng and Great Demon Yu felt that the space-time beam of light was very strange. That is, suddenly, Lin Feng's eyelids twitched violently. That was because he saw an illusory shadow. In the space-time beam of light, there was actually an illusory shadow. Clearly, the Great Demon Yu also saw the illusory shadow. When she saw that illusory shadow, Great Demon Yu's expression became even more solemn. She could feel how extraordinary that illusory shadow was. What a pair of quarrelsome lovers. However, this place will become your burial ground. That illusory shadow walked out. Then he spoke. His voice, it was filled with a dense coldness. It made one's hair stand on end. Lin Feng finally saw the appearance of this person clearly. He looked like a thin, middle-aged man. His eyes were incomparably evil. Who are you? Lin Feng asked in a deep voice. Kik. This entity suddenly let out a sinister laugh. Who am I? The illusory shadow said, as if talking to himself. He looked at Lin Feng and said eerily, I am the master of this dead soul's prison. Chapter 46, 95. The dead soul's prison was definitely filled with hidden secrets, but after obtaining the fortune of the 72nd level, this hidden secret had yet to appear. Now, with the appearance of the dead soul's prison's master, Lin Feng felt that he was close to uncovering the secrets of the dead soul's prison. I didn't expect the dead soul's prison to have another master. Are you the one who imprisoned so many living beings? Are you the one who cursed the guards of the dead soul's prison? And who are you? The Great Demon Yu looked at the middle-aged man before her. In the past, the Great Demon Yu had been a peak expert. Later on, she had followed her elder brother, the Great Demon Sky, and started the first great war in the history of this era. After that, the Great Demon Yu had been sealed. For a long time, she had been in a deep sleep. By the time he woke up, everything had changed. Back then, the Great Demon Yu had never heard of the Dead Soul's prison. Of course, the Dead Soul's prison might have already appeared in her era. It was just that it had been hidden very deeply. That was why the Great Demon You didn't know much about the Dead Souls prison. But there was another possibility. The Dead Souls prison had only appeared after the Great Demon Yu's era. That was why the Great Demon Yu didn't know anything about the Dead Souls prison. If she had been at her peak, the Great Demon Yu wouldn't have feared the Dead Souls prison's master. But now, the Great Demon Yu was too weak compared to her peak state. Therefore, the Great Demon Yu knew that since she was trapped here today, it would be extremely dangerous. She might even lose her life. The Dead Souls prison's master heard the Great Demon Yu's 3 questions. He didn't answer the Great Demon Yu. Instead, he said, "You have the bloodline of the Demon Imperial clan, and the most powerful, innate demon bloodline flows in your veins. I know someone. I don't know if you've heard of him." "Who?" The Great Demon Yu asked. "The Great Demon Sky," the Dead Souls prison's master said. The Great Demon Yu frowned slightly. She was all too familiar with the Great Demon Sky, because he was her elder brother. Lin Feng said, "I know the Great Demon Sky. He's my brother-in-law. My wife is the elder brother of the Great Demon Yu. It seems that we are all on the same side. Today is really a case of the flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. Family members don't recognize each other. Fortunately, we have finally recognized each other." She saw Lin Feng taking advantage of her. The Great Demon Yu had the impulse to slap Lin Feng to death. But obviously, she wouldn't fight with Lin Feng now, because she was now in an alliance with Lin Feng, although the two of them didn't have any communication on this matter. However, when the master of the Death Soul prison appeared, this was a tacit understanding between Lin Feng and the Great Demon Yu. If they wanted to survive, they had to be united. The Great Devil Realm's younger sister. Hearing Lin Feng's words, the master of the Dead Souls prison looked at the Great Demon Yu in surprise. He said, "Back then, I did hear the Great Devil Sky mention his younger sister. However, the Great Devil Sky told me that his younger sister had died in battle. It seems like the Great Devil Sky's information was wrong. I didn't expect you to still be alive." Lin Feng said, "Now that we have proven our identities, can you let us go?" The master of the Dead Souls prison said, sinisterly, "How can I let you go? The two of you are crucial to my reincarnation." Hearing that, Lin Feng said gravely, "The Great Devil Sky is your good friend. How can you treat us like this?" "Good friend? Not really. At most, we can be considered acquaintances. Back then, the Great Devil Sky was defeated and became a stray dog. How can a stray dog become my good friend?" The master of the Dead Souls prison said indifferently. His tone seemed to be filled with disdain for the Great Devil Sky. When Lin Feng heard the master of the Dead Souls prison's words, he knew that the master of the Dead Souls prison would definitely turn hostile. Therefore, the following battle was unavoidable. "You described my elder brother as a stray dog. Who do you think you are? You have been hiding in the Dead Souls prison for countless years, struggling at death's door. You are worse than a stray dog, yet you have the nerve to look down on others? Do you not know how to write the word shame? If you don't know, I know hundreds of ancient languages and characters. I can teach you. The Great Devil," Yu said coldly as she looked at the master of the Dead Souls prison. When Lin Feng heard the Great Devil Yu mocking the master of the Dead Souls prison, he immediately laughed. It seemed like the Great Devil Yu had a deep foundation in words as well. Her ability to mock others was almost on par with his. "You are about to die, yet you still dare mock me? You are truly courting death." The master of the Dead Souls prison looked at the Great Devil Yu indifferently. At this moment, Lin Feng said, "It is not certain who is about to die. Do you think you can defeat us? Moreover, you're no longer the same as you were at your peak. If I'm not wrong, there's definitely an extremely serious problem with your body. So, you built this death prison and captured many powerful beings before imprisoning them here. After that, you cursed your subordinates and made them become the undead that guarded the death prison. As for the entire death prison, it's a huge altar. The dead beings are the sacrificial offerings on the altar, and the altar can allow you to be reborn. Now, there's only one final step left before you can be reborn. The two of us have become the crucial chess pieces for you to be reborn. Am I right? The master of the dead soul's prison sneered and said, "You are right. Even I admire your logical thinking ability. However, smart people often don't live long." Lin Feng said with a faint smile, "That is not necessarily the case. I have a feeling that you will be the one to die today." "Why do you say that?" The master of the dead soul's prison looked at Lin Feng mockingly. "Because we don't want to die," Lin Feng said. "That is not a reason for you to continue living," the master of the dead soul's prison said. "In my opinion, it is." Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Then he activated the two evil god statues. The two evil god statues quickly charged at the master of the dead soul's prison. The great devil, you also seized the opportunity to attack the master of the dead soul's prison. A demonic wheel appeared in the great devil Yu's hand. The demonic wheel was called the demonic moon wheel. It was one of the treasures that the great devil Yu controlled. The demonic moon wheel was thrown out by the great devil Yu. Then it quickly charged at the master of the dead soul's prison. Ant-like things, there is no need for you to struggle. No matter how you struggle, you will not be able to escape the fate of death. Facing the attacks of the two evil god statues and the great devil Yu, the master of the dead soul's prison sneered with disdain. He waved his hand, and a powerful space-time energy distorted the void in front of him. The distorted void blocked the attacks of the two evil god statues and the demonic moon wheel. Then, Chapter 46, 96. When the space-time energy surged over Lin Feng and the great demon, you quickly retreated. They wanted to avoid being devoured by the space-time energy, but the space-time energy enveloped the entire 70-second level. Hence, it was unrealistic to try and avoid being devoured by the space-time energy. The situation was extremely unfavorable for Lin Feng and the great demon Yu. In the end, they failed to avoid being devoured by the space-time energy. After the powerful space-time energy enveloped their bodies, they were pulled into a mysterious space. This space was an independent space. The space-time energy sealed the space around them. The dead soul's prison master stood not far away, looking at Lin Feng and the great demon Yu. Of course, the dead soul's prison master's body was still illusory. His real body had yet to appear. Or rather, his real body should be in a very bad situation. His physical body might even be dead. "Are you trying to trap us here?" Lin Feng sneered. If he guessed correctly, this place should be an independent space within the light pillar. The world within the light pillar was very mysterious. It contained the space-time energy. Once one was sucked into it, there was a high chance that one would be banished to an unknown land of death or die under the space-time energy's attack. However, with the dead soul's prison master's means, it was not a problem for him to create an independent space here. In this independent space, the dead soul's prison master's combat power would reach its peak. "That's right. I want to trap you here until you die. Are you ready to die?" The dead soul's prison master said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zichen's voice fell. In the void, a storm began to blow. A large number of space-time storms swept towards Lin Feng and the great demon Yu. The space-time storms that wreaked havoc around them were too terrifying. They contained the destructive power of time and space fused together. It was hard to imagine how powerful such space-time storms were. Although Lin Feng had mastered the time and space Daos, the Dead Soul's prison master's strength was too weak. However, Lin Feng felt that even though he had mastered these two Daos, it was still unrealistic for him to resist the Dead Soul's prison master's attack. At this time, the great demon Yu began to recite an incantation. As the incantation continued, a large amount of black gas spread out from the great demon Yu's body. The black gas rolled violently in the void. Then, a world of darkness formed. The world of darkness resisted the corrosion of the space-time energy outside. The great demon Yu's means was too powerful. Quickly kill him. The world of darkness won't last for too long, said the great demon Yu. Lin nodded. He continued to control the two evil god stone statues to attack the Dead Soul's prison master. The great demon Yu's hand. The demonic moon will struck lightly. It was as if it could shatter the void. The power was so strong that it made one's expression change. Facing the attacks of the evil gods, stone statue, and the demonic moon, the master of the Death Soul's prison wore an indifferent expression, and a mocking expression appeared on his face. Obviously, the leader of the Dead Soul's prison looked down on Lin Feng and the great demon Yu. 1,000 layers of space. The master of the Dead Soul's prison looked indifferent. He waved his hand, and layers of folded space appeared before him. The folded space contained terrifying space-time energy blocking the Dead Soul's demon Yu and the moon demon Yu. Lin Feng and the great demon Yu's attacks couldn't get close to the Dead Soul's prison master. Lowly ants, why do you still need to make a futile struggle? The Dead Soul's prison master looked indifferently at Lin Feng and the great demon Yu. In his eyes, Lin Feng and the great demon Yu were no different from dead people. The great demon Yu was filled with hatred. How strong was she when she was at her peak? Now, her cultivation had fallen. She was bullied to this extent. This made the great demon Yu experience the experience of a dragon in shallow waters being teased by shrimps and a tiger being bullied by dogs. The great demon Yu was depressed. Lin Feng didn't have time to be depressed. He stepped forward in the void. Lin Feng began to chant an incantation. Great Tao of Fate, please descend with the power of fate. Let the power of fate destroy the overlapping space before us. Let the power of fate destroy the life of this evil being. Lin Feng's voice was filled with despair. When Lin Feng finished his incantation, a river of destiny condensed in the void. The river of destiny descended from the sky and slammed into the folded space before them. Bang! When the river of destiny slammed into the folded space began to crumble. The river of destiny's power was too terrifying, so much so that even the folded space created by the Dead Soul's prison master couldn't stop the river of destiny's attack. The great art of destiny was the great art of destiny, as expected of the number one great Tao of the 3,000 great Taos. It was heaven-defying. The great demon Yu's eyes lit up. She hurriedly controlled the moon demon Yu to attack the Dead Soul's prison master. At the same time, Lin Feng controlled the two statues to attack the Dead Soul's prison master. The Dead Soul's prison master's expression darkened. He hadn't expected Lin Feng to break his divine ability. This infuriated the Dead Soul's prison master. In his eyes, this was a humiliation. Sword of space-time. The Dead Soul's prison master shouted coldly. As soon as his voice fell, a sword appeared in his hand. The sword was condensed from the power of space-time. Anyone could feel the power of the sword. They would find it inconceivable. The sword's power was too great. It was as if it could split open the universe. The Dead Soul's prison master wielded the sword of space-time and slashed out 3 times in a row. 3 streaks of dazzling sword light condensed into form. The first sword ray collided with the great demon Yu's moon demon Yu. A sonorous sound of collision rang out. The great demon, Yu's moon demon, Yu was sent flying. The second sword ray collided with the stone, sword of one of the statues. The stone statue of the evil god was sent flying. The third sword light collided with the stone sword in the hands of the other evil god statue. The evil god statue was also sent flying by the impact. Strong. He was too strong. The dead soul's prison master was just an illusory incarnation, but he had such terrifying power. It was simply unimaginable how strong the dead soul's prison master was. Lowly ants, no matter how you struggle, only death awaits you. I will now cut off your heads. Chapter 46, 97. The death soul's prison master's body emitted a terrifying aura. After sensing the terrifying aura, Lin Feng and the great demon Yu's expressions turned ugly. Their combined strength was actually very shocking, but it was difficult to resist the death soul's prison master's attacks. Therefore, the current situation was very unfavorable for them. Lin Feng was thinking of a way to deal with the death soul's prison master. Forget about Bei Bei and the others. They simply couldn't participate in a battle of this level. Lin Feng tried to communicate with the demon lord, but the demon lord was still in seclusion. Lin Feng could not contact the demon lord. Therefore, Lin Feng was at his wit's end. At this time, a trace of madness appeared in the great demon Yu's eyes. She said coldly, "Do you think you've won? We still don't know who will be the winner." As her voice fell, the great demon Yu's body began to burn. She was burning her lifespan and blood essence. Moreover, she was chanting an incantation. The great demon Yu's voice was too soft, so Lin Feng could not hear what she was chanting. But presumably, the great demon Yu was using an extremely heaven-defying method. Otherwise, she would not be burning her lifespan and blood essence at the same time. This was extremely harmful to a cultivator. Generally, no one would do such a crazy thing unless it was a matter of life and death. Seeing the great demon Yu burning her lifespan and blood essence, as well as chanting an incantation, the death soul's prison master could not help but frown. Although he looked down on the great demon Yu's brother, the great demon Sky, the death soul's prison master knew how terrifying the great demon Sky was. As the great demon Sky's sister, the great demon Yu probably had some extremely heaven-defying methods that could very well turn the situation around. Therefore, when the great demon Yu used such methods, he had to be careful. Otherwise, he might suffer a great loss. The death soul's prison master was naturally very clear about this. The dead soul's prison master sped up, wanting to kill the great demon Yu as soon as possible. That way, he could stop the great demon Yu. Lin Feng frowned. He had to block the attack of the dead soul's prison master. Only then could he buy time for great demon Yu to use her secret technique. If the death soul's prison master was allowed to come, the great demon Yu would be killed before she could use her secret technique. Lin Feng summoned the Hell King's bell. Then, he entered the Hell King bell. Lin Feng activated the Hell King's bell, which smashed towards the dead soul's prison's master. The reason why Lin Feng hid inside the Hell King's bell was because he knew how powerful the dead soul's prison's master was. Naturally, he had to be careful. Otherwise, who knew what terrible things would happen? When the leader of the dead soul's prison saw Lin Feng hiding in an ancient bell, he looked at him disdainfully. He wielded the space-time sword to slash at the Hell King's bell. He wanted to split the Hell King's bell and kill Lin Feng with one slash. Apparently, the dead soul's prison master didn't recognize the Hell King's bell. That was why he was so confident. If he knew the Hell King's bell, he wouldn't think that way. Clang! The space-time sword in his hand slashed at the Hell King's bell, and instantly there was an earth-shaking sound. However, the space-time sword couldn't split the Hell King's bell. The bell of Hell King slammed into the body of the master of Dead Souls prison and sent him flying. What kind of bell is this? How could it be so powerful? The Dead Souls prison master couldn't help but be shocked. The bell that will take your life. Lin Feng sneered and continued to control the Hell King's bell to hit the Dead Souls prison master. It would be better if he could kill this guy. However, the Dead Souls prison master's reaction was extremely fast. He faced the Hell King's bell for the second time. The Dead Souls prison master threw a punch at the Hell King's bell. Clang! Another earth-shaking sound of violent collision rang out. The Dead Souls prison master and the Hell King's bell collided for the second time. However, this time, the Hell King's bell was sent flying. Clang! 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 The Dead Souls prison master rushed forward and punched at the Hell King's bell continuously. A strong vibration power poured into the Hell King's bell and shook Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng didn't know how many of his bones were broken. His face was extremely pale. The master of the Dead Souls prison was simply too powerful. If this continued, he would definitely be shaken to death by this fellow. At this critical moment, an illusory shadow appeared behind the master of the Dead Souls prison. The illusory figure slammed its palm toward the Dead Souls prison master. The Dead Souls prison master's senses were extremely terrifying. He seemed to have sensed the sudden appearance of the illusory shadow behind him. Hence, the Dead Souls prison master turned around and punched back. Bang! The two sides collided. After all, the Dead Souls prison master acted hastily and was sent flying. Great Devil Sky! The Dead Souls prison master looked at the illusory shadow in shock. Lin Feng also flew out from the Hell King's bell. He looked at the illusory shadow. It was an illusory shadow that the Great Devil Yu had just condensed by burning her essence, blood, and lifespan. That existence was the Great Devil Yu's elder brother, the Great Devil Sky. This made Lin Feng extremely shocked. This was an unprecedented figure, no matter if it was good or bad. In terms of cultivation, the Great Devil Sky was definitely an extremely important place in the history of this era. Although this existence was only an illusory shadow of the Great Devil Sky, moreover, it was an illusory shadow that was summoned by the Great Devil Yu. It was very different from the illusory shadows that cultivators condensed. Even so, the Great Devil Sky's illusory shadow was still very terrifying. The Great Devil Sky's illusory shadow ignored the Dead Souls prison master. He continued to attack the Dead Souls prison master. Humph! Today, I'll destroy you as well. The Dead Souls prison master's expression was indifferent. Seeing the Great Devil Sky's illusory shadow attack, he coldly shouted, "One hand covers the sky." As soon as his voice fell, he opened his hand and slapped the Great Devil Sky's illusory shadow across the void. In an instant, a huge hand that covered the sky condensed in the void. After seeing that huge hand, Lin Feng's face revealed an extremely shocked expression. That huge hand that covered the sky was too terrifying. It made him feel like he was suffocating. It was hard to imagine how powerful that huge hand was. Devil exterminates the human world. Suddenly, the Great Devil Sky's cold voice resounded between heaven and earth. Endless devil chi surged out. The rolling devil chi seemed to be able to cover the sky. The huge hand that covered the sky was enveloped by the devil chi emitted by the Great Devil Sky. Chapter 4698. How terrifying! Lin Feng couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. He didn't know how strong the Great Devil Sky's true body was. However, Lin Feng knew the Great Devil Sky's true body had been able to stir up chaos in the early days of the new era. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the Great Devil Sky was. even an illusory body formed by the great Devil Sky's secret technique, was so powerful, it was unimaginable. After the rolling demon chi destroyed the sky-covering hand formed by the Master of the Death Soul's prison, it continued to envelop the Master of the Death Soul's prison. The Death Soul's prison's master's expression was gloomy. He sneered and said, "Great Devil Sky, today I'll let you have a taste of my supreme technique." Heaven-cleaving art, the Death Soul's prison's master's cold voice suddenly rang out. Then he leaped out. The Death Soul's prison's master transformed into an eternal evil light. That eternal evil light was simply too terrifying. Anyone who felt the might of that eternal evil light would feel their hearts tremble. The eternal evil light tore through the darkness. In an instant, it arrived in front of the great Devil Sky. Then, it slashed towards the great Devil Sky, intending to kill him. The great Devil Sky's fist was surrounded by endless devil light as he punched out. Clang, 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 clang. The two sides collided again and again. The great Devil Sky's pair of devil fists swept across the world. He was invincible. As for the Death Soul's prison's master, the eternal evil light's power was terrifying. The two sides fought fiercely. It was a short stalemate. Lin Feng glanced at the nearby great Devil Sky. Her face was as pale as paper. The great Devil Sky's illusory body had consumed a lot of her energy, mainly by burning her blood essence and lifespan. It was extremely harmful to her body. Therefore, she couldn't be counted on to be of any use in this battle. However, Lin Feng was still at his peak. Although he had suffered heavy injuries before, those injuries were not caused by burning his lifespan or essence blood. Injuries caused by external forces could be quickly healed by the undying bloodline. Lin Feng ordered the two evil god stone statues again. After receiving Lin Feng's order, the two evil god stone statues quickly charged towards the Dead Soul's prison master. In an instant, two stone statues of the evil god formed, and the great Devil Sky phantoms besieged the Master of the Dead Soul's prison. Although the Master of the Dead Soul's prison was powerful after being besieged for a while, the eternal evil light that he had transformed into had been beaten back to its original form. "Weren't you very awesome just now?" "Why not now?" Lin Feng said sarcastically. "Damn you, I'll deal with you after I've dealt with them," the Master of the Dead Soul's prison said coldly. Then he began to chant an incantation. As his incantation fell, an extremely terrifying power suddenly gushed out from the depths of this space. That terrifying power quickly flew towards the Master of the Death Soul's prison. Seeing this, Lin Feng and the great demon Yu's expressions changed slightly. Obviously, when that power merged with the Master of the Death Soul prison, the battle prowess of the Master of the Dead Soul's prison would soar. Right now, the great Devil Sky phantoms and the two stone statues of the evil god could firmly suppress the Master of the Dead Soul's prison. However, if that terrifying power merged with the Master of the Dead Soul's prison, perhaps the outcome of their battle would be completely reversed. When the time came, the Master of the Dead Soul's prison would be able to suppress the great Devil Sky phantoms and the two stone statues of the evil god. Naturally, this was something that Lin Feng didn't want to see. Therefore, Lin Feng quickly took out the Hou-Yi bow and the Sunshot Divine Arrow. He could draw the bow into a full moon shape. Swoosh! The Sunshot Divine Arrow flew out. Lin Feng's target wasn't the Master of the Dead Soul's prison. Instead, it was the terrifying power that came from the depths of this space. Bang! The Sunshot Divine Arrow shot towards the terrifying power that came from the depths of this space. Instantly, that ball of powerful energy instantly crumbled. "You deserve to die 10,000 times. Seeing this scene, the Master of the Dead Soul's prison roared furiously. He was so angry that he wanted to go crazy. Lin Feng had ruined his plans. At this time, the sunshot divine arrow had already flown back to Lin Feng's hand. Lin Feng sneered and said, "You deserve to die. People like you. For your own return. How many living beings have you killed? People like you. Even if you die 1,000 times, 10,000 times, it won't be enough." As his voice faded, Lin Feng pulled the bow and shot an arrow. Swoosh! Sunshot divine arrow. Once again, it shot towards the master of the dead souls prison. The great devil sky phantoms and the 2 stone statues of the evil god also attacked the master of the dead souls prison. He wanted to get rid of everyone, but it wasn't easy. He wanted to avoid the sunshot divine arrow. However, he was entangled by the great devil sky and the 2 stone statues of the evil god, so he couldn't get rid of the sunshot divine arrow. When the sunshot divine arrow shot towards him, he slapped the sunshot divine arrow with his palm. The powerful space-time power distorted the void. The space-time power enveloped the sunshot divine arrow, trying to shake it away. However, when Lin Feng shot the sunshot divine arrow, he had already added the space-time power to it. Therefore, the space-time power of the master of the dead souls prison wasn't able to shake the sunshot divine arrow away. The sunshot divine arrow pierced through the space-time power and instantly pierced through the palm of the master of the dead souls prison. Although it was only an illusory palm, it couldn't help but crumble under the attack of the sunshot divine arrow. The sunshot divine arrow continued to shoot towards the head of the master of the dead souls prison. At this time, the master of the dead souls prison grabbed the sunshot divine arrow with his other hand. However, the great devil sky's attack landed on the master of the dead souls prison. That terrifying palm was extremely powerful. After receiving the attack of the great devil sky, the body of the master of the dead souls prison began to crumble. Why is it like this? The master of the dead souls prison roared unwillingly. In the next moment, a stone statue of the evil god held a stone sword and cut off the head of the master of the dead souls prison. Lin Feng rushed over and smashed the body of the master of the dead souls prison with a punch. The body of the master of the dead souls prison turned into a pure source of life. Lin Feng was shocked. This was the source of the soul. Previously, the master of the dead souls prison had hidden it very well. Lin Feng hadn't discovered that his body was formed by the condensation of the source of the soul. Now he had discovered it. He was pleasantly surprised. This guy's source of soul could increase Lin Feng's soul power. Previously, Lin Feng had guessed that this guy's body was already dead. Now it could be confirmed. As long as the body didn't die, there was no need to use the power of the soul to deal with him and the great devil you. The soul was the foundation of a cultivator. Once it was injured, the damage would be too great. Unless there was no other way, no one would let their soul leave their body. At this moment, the body of the great devil sky became more and more illusory. Clearly, it was about to dissipate. In the end, the body of the great devil sky dissipated. Lin Feng collected the soul of the master of the dead souls prison. Let's go. Let's find out where the exit is. Lin Feng looked at the great devil you and said, Chapter 46, 99. Lin Feng was stunned when he saw the corpse. Wasn't that the corpse of the dead souls prison's master? They looked exactly the same. Lin Feng would recognize him even if he turned into ashes. So this guy's corpse is here. I'll burn his corpse now. Lin Feng said. Then he released the heavenly fire. The heavenly fire flew toward the dead souls prison's master's corpse. But at that moment, a huge energy barrier formed around the dead souls prison's master's corpse. As for the energy barrier, it had blocked the attack of the heavenly flames. Lin Feng was astonished when he saw that. The great demon, you said, this body doesn't have any vitality, which means it's dead. But it can still release such a protective barrier. What's going on? It's really strange. Lin Feng said, could it be some kind of trick left behind when he was alive? It's to prevent anyone from disturbing his corpse. The great demon, you said, do you think that guy thinks someone can kill him? Lin Feng frowned when he heard that. It was indeed as the great demon you had said. The Dead Souls Prison's master was indeed an extremely confident person. He had never thought that he would be killed. Therefore, someone with such confidence shouldn't have set up some kind of trick to protect his corpse. Then, there was only one possibility to explain this matter. And that was the Dead Souls Prison's master hadn't died completely. Lin Feng and the great demon, you immediately thought of this possibility. Lin Feng took out the Ho-E bow and the Sunshot God arrow, then said, I'll give him another arrow. Whoosh! Lin Feng pulled the bowstring and shot an arrow. The Sunshot God arrow shot toward the Dead Souls Prison's master's corpse at lightning speed. A poochie sound was heard. The Sunshot God arrow instantly pierced through the Dead Souls Prison's master's defensive barrier. Then, the Sunshot God arrow shot toward the Dead Souls Prison's master's corpse. But at this moment, the corpse suddenly opened its eyes and slapped out with its palm. His palm landed on the body of the sun-slaying divine arrow. The sun-shooting divine arrow was sent flying. Immediately after, the master of the Dead Souls Prison stood up. You're not dead. Lin Feng looked at the master of the Death Souls Prison in shock. He had clearly felt that the master's body had lost all signs of life. But why? He was actually resurrected. The great demon, you also frowned with a solemn expression. Previously, they had guessed that the physical body of the master of the Dead Souls Prison was already dead, and only a remnant soul was left. It'll be easier to deal with. However, if the physical body of the master of the Dead Souls Prison was still alive, for them, the situation was extremely bad. Of course I'm not dead. The eyes of the master of the Death Souls Prison were filled with dense killing intent. He reached out his right hand, and a powerful Dharma power surged. He seemed to want to condense a powerful divine ability to deal with Lin Feng and the great devil you. Let's go. Great demon, you said, and turned to leave. But Lin Feng grabbed Great Mou's hand. This hand, slender, soft, holding it in his hand was really comfortable. What are you doing? The great demon, you struggled free from Lin Feng's hand and glared at Lin Feng. Although this woman looked as enchanting as a fairy, and sometimes she was able to let go and say flirtatious words, she was still very conservative. In reality, she was still very conservative. Lin Feng said, there's no need to leave. This guy is just bluffing. A bluff? The great demon, you was astonished. Then, she looked at the master of the Dead Souls Prison. Lin Feng said, when we came here, we did feel that the corpse of the master of the Dead Souls Prison had no signs of life. However, the body of the master of the Dead Souls Prison had formed a defensive barrier that blocked my heavenly fire. However, the sunshot divine arrow I shot out pierced through the barrier. If the master of the Dead Souls Prison was still so heaven-defying, my sunshot divine arrow wouldn't have been able to pierce through the barrier so easily. However, my sunshot divine arrow did it. This means that there are many problems. If my guess is correct, the master of the Dead Souls Prison that we killed earlier was only a part of his soul origin. He should have left a part of his soul origin here, just in case. However, the master of the Dead Souls Prison was a very confident person. He believed that the chances of an accident happening were almost negligible. Therefore, the part of his soul origin that he left here is very different from the part we killed earlier. Right now, This part of his soul origin is controlling this corpse that has been dead for who knows how many years. Am I right? Lin Feng looked at the master of the dead soul's prison. The great demon, you looked at Lin Feng in shock. She never thought that Lin Feng would be able to deduce so many things in such a short time. He was as intelligent as a demon. A trace of panic appeared in the master of the dead soul's prison's eyes, but he quickly concealed it. I don't know what nonsense you are talking about. The master of the dead soul's prison stared coldly at Lin Feng. Lin Feng's smile grew even brighter. He said, I am now even more certain that everything I said is true. If you were strong enough, given your arrogant personality, would you have wasted so much time talking to me? Given your personality, you would have attacked long ago. Am I right? The master of the dead soul's prison's expression grew even more unsightly. Clearly, Lin Feng had seen through everything. The great demon, you said, I see. If that's the case, this guy isn't particularly strong right now. That's great. Now is the best chance to kill him. The great demon you was about to attack. The master of the dead soul's prison stopped her. Wait. What? What else do you want to say? The great demon, you looked coldly at the master of the dead soul's prison. The master of the dead soul's prison said, Killing me won't do you any good. As long as you don't kill me, I can give you a lot of benefits. Lin Feng sneered. Compared to the benefits, we want to kill you more. Moreover, if we kill you, the benefits will still be ours. The master of the dead soul's prison said with a gloomy expression, Don't you want to know where I came from and what the dead soul's prison used to be? Also, why did the dead soul's prison appear in a place like the Black Sand Devil prison? There are many shocking secrets hidden here, and it even involves the secret of immortality. Hearing that, Lin Feng and the great demon, you couldn't help but exchange glances. The two of them tacitly understood each other's thoughts. Chapter 4700. Lin Feng said, Now, you can tell me about your origin. The Death Soul Prison's master said, I'm a life form born from an evil stone. I'm a sentient life form that appeared at the beginning of the era. Lin Feng said, No wonder you're so powerful. What happened later? The Death Soul Prison's master said, Grand Supreme. It's that bastard Grand Supreme. He's a despicable and shameless person. He schemed against me. If he hadn't schemed against me, I wouldn't have died. I wouldn't have ended up in such a state where my fleshly body and vitality were completely destroyed. Grand Supreme schemed against you? Why would he do that? Lin Feng asked in surprise. Although Lin Feng wasn't particularly familiar with the Grand Supreme, Lin Feng still had some understanding of him. The Grand Supreme was an incomparably heaven-defying existence. Moreover, during the beginning of the era, he was one of the strongest life forms. Grand Hai was also one of the most powerful creatures. His talent and comprehension were all existences that could crush an entire era. There were far too few creatures that could be compared to him. The Grand Supreme was a prideful person. Therefore, Lin Feng felt that the Grand Supreme wouldn't go so far as to scheme against others, right? Of course. Everything was hard to say. It was hard to say how the Grand Supreme dealt with matters. After all, he had only heard about the Grand Supreme and had never seen him in person. This matter starts from the true scroll of the highest mystery, heavenly path. The Death Soul Prison's master said, What's the true scroll of the highest mystery, heavenly path? Lin Feng asked, puzzled. The master of the Death Soul's prison said, It's said that an ancient expert who has lived for several eras brought it out from the supreme divine court. Hearing this, Lin Feng and the great demon, you revealed extremely shocked expressions. Only those who had some understanding of the supreme divine court knew how terrifying it was. What did it mean? What's recorded in it? The great demon, you asked. It records the most ancient Tao, the change of eras, the replacement of Tao. However, the evolution of thousands of Taos is justified. They didn't appear out of thin air. It's said that the supreme divine court and the door of everlasting life are the source of all Taos. Therefore, the supreme divine court and the door of everlasting life didn't perish when an era collapsed. Every era, the Taos that appeared were all derived from the supreme divine court and the door of everlasting life. For example, this era's 3,000 Taos. Rumor has it that these Taos were created by powerful cultivators, but that's not the case. These Taos were obtained by powerful cultivators from the door of everlasting life and then spread out. Cultivators who didn't know about this started spreading false rumors. And the more they spread, the more ridiculous it became. The master of the Death Souls prison said, "What about the heaven-shaking steel? What kind of role did it play?" Asked Lin Feng. The heaven-shaking steel, it's said that it's very mysterious. Some say that the heaven-shaking steel is a supplement to the supreme divine court and the door of everlasting life. Perhaps the Taos of the supreme divine court and the door of everlasting life are incomplete, so part of the Taos are branded on the heaven-shaking steel. However, it's almost impossible to comprehend the heaven-shaking steel. In the past, some top experts obtained the heaven-shaking steel, but not many were able to comprehend its secrets. Said the Death Souls prison's master, "How did the Grand Elder plot against you?" Asked Lin Feng curiously. The Grand Elder told me about the greatest mystery heaven weighs true slip. It's one of the great Tao's general principles. If I could comprehend the contents of the greatest mystery heaven weighs true slip, I could even create all kinds of great Taos. I could even create a new world similar to the epic world. In order to obtain the greatest mystery heaven weighs true slip, I used all the power at my disposal to fight against the enemy. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. At this moment, a mysterious expert appeared. He stole the greatest mystery heaven weighs true slip. At this point, the Dead Souls prison's master's eyes flashed with hatred. It must be the Grand Elder. He's a hypocrite. He told me the news. He let me fight for it. I fought to the death with the enemy, but he took advantage of me. During that battle, my foundation was damaged. The life force in my body was quickly draining away. I knew I didn't have long to live. Fortunately, a few years ago, I obtained a secret technique in the land of death. This secret technique will allow me to reincarnate. Moreover, when I reincarnate, my talent, strength, and so on will be greatly enhanced. However, this secret technique was very evil. It required the flesh, blood, and soul essences of 9,999 powerful beings as a sacrifice. Therefore, I began to secretly capture powerful cultivators and imprison them in the Dead Souls prison. Asked the great demon Yu, "Did you build the Dead Souls prison?" The Dead Souls prison's master said, "No, I didn't build the Dead Souls prison. The Dead Souls prison is actually a supreme treasure. It's a supreme treasure forged by a supreme expert from the previous era." Lin Feng and the great demon Yu were shocked. They hadn't expected the Dead Souls prison to have such a history. Such a supreme treasure must be extremely heaven-defying, right? Are you in control of this supreme treasure? Asked Lin Feng. The Dead Souls prison's master shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I can only control a portion of the Dead Souls prison's power. I don't control the entire prison. If I could control it completely, do you think you would be able to resist me?" Lin Feng sneered. "You're already a stray dog, yet you're still acting tough." The Dead Souls prison's master was furious when he heard Lin Feng mocking him. However, He didn't argue with Lin Feng. Instead, he continued, "When I first obtained the Dead Souls prison and imprisoned those people, I didn't think of coming to the Black Sand Devil prison. However, I later discovered that there was a mysterious power summoning the Dead Souls prison. Thus, I was summoned to the Black Sand Devil prison by that mysterious power." Mysterious power? You mean the power of the Black Sand Devil prison summoned you here? What kind of power is that? Asked Lin Feng in astonishment. Yes. However, I don't know what that mysterious power is. The Black Sand Devil prison hides a great secret. Perhaps even the ruler of the Black Sand Devil prison doesn't know what it is, said the Dead Souls prison's master. My body, said the great demon Yu suddenly. Lin Feng looked at the great demon Yu and saw her fall to the ground. What happened to you? Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Chapter 47:01. Hearing the laughter, Lin Feng knew that the Death Soul prison's master was up to something. However, he shouldn't have released poison. If he did, the white jade toad would have sensed it. Lin Feng wondered what method the Death Soul prison's master had used to make the great demon Yu's body go limp. At that moment, Lin Feng realized that his body was also feeling weak. It was a terrible feeling. Lin Feng's expression turned ugly. It seemed that he had been tricked as well. What did you do to us? Lin Feng looked at the Death Soul prison's master with a gloomy expression. Do you see the ancient tree behind me? The Death Soul prison's master said with a smile. Lin Feng had noticed the ancient tree. It seemed to be an enlightenment ancient tree. There was nothing special about it. Lin Feng asked, "Isn't that just an enlightenment ancient tree? Could it be that ancient tree isn't an enlightenment ancient tree?" The Death Soul prison's master said, "Of course it is. However, this ancient tree isn't an ordinary enlightenment ancient tree. Apart from helping cultivators comprehend the Tao, this ancient tree also emits a special energy. This energy fuses with the void and is invisible. It's almost impossible to sense it. This energy can make a person's body go limp and powerless. A person will quickly enter a dream and comprehend the Tao in the dream. When they wake up, they will realize that their cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds. However, a cultivator's body is resistant to the energy produced by the enlightenment ancient tree. Every cultivator, they can only absorb this energy 3 times. After 3 times, the effect will be lost. This is the first time the 2 of you have absorbed this energy, so your bodies will become limp and powerless. If it were any other time, this would be your opportunity. But now, it's no longer your opportunity. It's your death talisman." Hearing that, Lin Feng and the great demon Yu's expressions changed slightly. In fact, they had been on guard against this guy before. But who would have thought they had been tricked by the Death Soul prison's master? If he had known this would happen, if he killed him directly, he wouldn't be tricked by him. What a good plan. But you think, have you already won against us? Lin Feng said indifferently. Do you still have a way to resist? The master of the Death Soul's prison immediately showed a disdainful expression. He didn't believe that Lin Feng still had a way to resist. Of course, Lin Feng waved his hand. Immediately, the celestial devouring bugs and the primitive demon refining bugs flew out. For example, Bibi and Little Hay were highly intelligent. Therefore, after absorbing this energy, they all fell into a deep sleep. They were also about to comprehend the Tao. Only some living beings who did not comprehend the Tao. He wouldn't absorb this kind of special energy. Only the immortal devouring bugs and the primitive fiend refining bugs did not comprehend the Tao. Other than the 2 insect groups, Lin Feng could also control the 2 evil god statues. Kill him. Lin Feng ordered the 2 evil god statues. The 2 evil god statues quickly charged at the master of the Death Soul's prison. At the same time, the two insect groups also understood and quickly pounced on the master of the Death Soul's prison. Originally, the master of the Death Soul's prison was waiting for Lin Feng and the great demon Yu to faint. At that time, the two evil god statues would stop attacking. Therefore, he planned to fight the two statues for a while. However, the two insect groups covered the sky and surrounded the master of the Death Soul's prison. As a result, the master of the Death Soul's prison was unable to fight the two statues. The two evil god statues mixed in with the swarm of insects and fought against the master of the Dead Soul's prison. After all, the master of the Death Soul's prison was only a remnant soul. His battle prowess was only comparable to the two statues. After Lin Feng's two insect groups joined the battle, the master of the Death Soul's prison was greatly suppressed. Some of the celestial devouring bugs and primitive demon refining bugs even burrowed into the master of the Death Soul's prison and started eating his body. This was especially true for creatures like the celestial devouring bugs. They could also devour souls. By continuously devouring all kinds of powerful creatures, the insect swarm could complete their evolution. Don't eat my body. I want to devour my soul. Damn it! Damn it! You little bastard! How could you keep such a powerful insect swarm? The master of the Death Soul's prison shouted in horror and cursed Lin Feng. He could barely resist the attack of the two statues. As for the celestial devouring bugs and primitive demon refining bugs, he could no longer resist. Therefore, the current him, he was completely surrounded by the two insect groups. The two insect swarms began to gnaw at his body and even his soul. In fact, the strength of this body could no longer be compared to when it was at its peak. Time was enough to destroy everything. After a long period of time, this body had gradually become weak and decayed. It could not resist the two insect groups at all. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and used all his strength to shoot an arrow. After shooting the arrow, Lin Feng fell to the ground. The sunshot god arrow shot toward the master of the Death Soul's prison as fast as lightning. Puchi, the sun-slaying divine, arrow pierced through the head of the Dead Soul's prison master. The soul of the master of the Dead Soul's prison was shattered. Why did this happen? I schemed against the ancient times. Why did I end up like this? The master of the Death Soul's prison roared unwillingly. He did not want to die, but he knew there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. Today, he would die without a doubt. I am willing to become the power of the curse and curse the two of them to die a horrible death. I am willing to become the power of the curse and completely destroy their bodies so that they will die without a complete corpse. Suddenly, the master of the Death Soul's prison swore a curse. It was his final curse before he died. After he swore the curse, his body exploded. Then his self-detonating body transformed into a powerful curse power. The curse power, it surged into the bodies of Lin Feng and the great demon Yu respectively. Lin Feng had the feeling that the terrifying cursing strength was penetrating his body. It seemed to want to completely destroy his body. The great demon Yu's situation was the same. The curse power was very terrifying and wanted to destroy the great demon Yu's body. Perhaps it was because the curse power was rampaging through their bodies, but Lin Feng and the great demon Yu did not fall asleep. On the contrary, they became more energetic. Moreover, Lin Feng felt the curse power in his body becoming more and more violent. If this continued, it would be very dangerous. Lin Feng wanted to release the cursing strength in his body. Chapter 47:02. Bang, bang, bang. Lin Feng punched the ground again and again to vent the berserk curse energy in his body. Lin Feng only wanted to vent the berserk curse energy as soon as possible. If he didn't vent the berserk curse energy in his body, Lin Feng was worried that his body would explode. The curse of an ancient expert before his death was indeed incomparably terrifying. One couldn't afford to underestimate it. Otherwise, one would die miserably. However, Lin Feng discovered that he still couldn't vent the curse energy in his body. This made him anxious and helpless. He glanced at the great demon Yu and discovered that there was a unique energy fluctuation around her body. The berserk power in her body was weakening. It seemed that the great demon Yu had her own way to resolve the current dangerous situation. What should I do? What should I do? Lin Feng gasped for breath. He felt as if his body would explode from the curse energy in his body at any moment. This feeling was truly terrible. In the end, the berserk curse energy even rushed into Lin Feng's mind. It affected Lin Feng's ability to think. Lin Feng even felt that his consciousness was a little blurry. Lin Feng lay on the ground and couldn't help but smile bitterly. What a scam! How many tribulations had he gone through? In the end, he had managed to avert danger. However, in the end, he had actually fallen to the curse of the Dead Souls prison's master. Lin Feng glanced at the great demon Yu again. Lin Feng felt that the berserk power in the great demon Yu's body had decreased by a lot. This woman, it seemed that she would be able to recover soon. Lin Feng had been thinking of subduing the great demon Yu, but it seemed that there was no chance now. However, it didn't matter. Even if he couldn't subdue the great demon Yu, he would make sure that the great demon Yu would never forget him for the rest of her life. Thinking of this, Lin Feng crawled up from the ground and pounced on the great demon Yu. Originally, Lin Feng thought that he was dead for sure. Who would have thought that the berserk curse energy in his body would merge with the great demon Yu's berserk curse energy? In the end, it was neutralized. This gave Lin Feng great benefits. When Lin Feng woke up, he found that he had broken through to the 9th layer of the sovereign realm. Lin Feng was extremely happy. Surprisingly, he had broken through. What a pleasant surprise! Most importantly, his life was saved. I'll kill you. The great Mou's eyelashes fluttered. She opened her eyes and threw a punch at Lin Feng. Lin Feng got up, turned around, and fled you. Lin Feng hadn't thought such a thing would happen. He had thought he was going to die. He hadn't thought that not only would he survive, but he would also benefit from it. Don't run! The great demon, Yu screamed in anger. She wrapped herself in her red muslin dress. As for Lin Feng, he was covered in a green robe. Lin Feng ran and shouted, "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. I lost consciousness at that time. So I did something stupid. I don't care if you lost consciousness or not. You deserve to die. I'll tear you to pieces." The great demon, Yu said furiously. She wanted nothing more than to cut Lin Feng into pieces. The two of them ran and chased. Lin Feng said, "Don't worry, I'll take responsibility for you." "I don't need you to take responsibility. I just want to kill you." The great demon, Yu shouted angrily. Lin Feng had met the great demon Yu more than once or twice. The great demon Yu was only a woman with a bold mouth. In reality, she was extremely conservative. This was also why Lin Feng had grabbed her hand. This was the reason why she was so angry. Let alone now. Lin Feng didn't doubt the great demon Yu's words. If the great demon Yu caught him, he would definitely kill him. "Little Yeye, don't be angry. Anger is harmful to your body. Even if it's not for yourself, you have to think about the baby in your stomach," Lin Feng shouted. Hearing Lin Feng's words, the great demon Yu's body trembled in anger. "Shameless! Scum! Bastard! Bastard! Bastard!" The great demon Yu cursed with all the words she could. "Don't worry. After I catch you, I won't kill you directly. I'll torture you ruthlessly. I'll cut off your flesh piece by piece, she said hatefully. Lin Feng said, Can you bear to see the baby in your stomach grow up, fatherless? The great demon, you shrieked. Shut up! Lin Feng said, How about we make peace? Don't worry. After you follow me, I'll take good care of you. The great demon, you looked at Lin Feng angrily. She ignored Lin Feng and continued chasing after Lin Feng. However, she couldn't catch up to Lin Feng. If it was before, she might have been able to catch up to Lin Feng. However, after being hit by the strange energy of the Enlightenment ancient tree, her body became soft and feeble. Although she had already neutralized the energy, she still needed time to recover. However, she needed time to fully recover. She was different from Lin Feng. Lin Feng had the undying divine body. In addition, he had broken through in his cultivation. It was very easy for him to recover to his peak state. Therefore, the great demon, you couldn't catch up to Lin Feng. The great demon, Yu's beautiful eyes slightly turned as she said, Stop, I promise you. What? Promise me? Did I hear wrongly? Lin Feng was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. Was this the great demon, you who wanted to kill him? She had been chasing after him, but in the blink of an eye, she had promised him. There was definitely something fishy going on. At this moment, the great demon, you continued, I'm a very conservative person, and since you've become my first man, I'll give you a chance. Since you're my first man, my entire life, I'm destined to only have you as my only man. I've already thought it through. Therefore, I've decided to become your woman. Little Yaya, this is definitely the best decision you've made. However, I'm a coward, and I'm afraid you're lying to me. How can you prove that everything you've said is true? Lin Feng asked. The great demon, you said angrily. Lin Feng, you bastard. You don't even trust your own woman? Is this how you act as a man? Can't you act like a man? Lin Feng said, Little Yaya, don't be angry. I'm sincere to you. The sun and moon can prove it. However, only you will know if you're sincere to me. How about this? You might as well swear an oath. If you do, I'll believe you. Lin Feng, I'll tear you to pieces. The great demon, you screamed furiously and took out her demonic moon. Chapter 47:03. Because Lin Feng and the great demon, you were still quite far away. The devil moonwheel's power had already declined by the time it reached Lin Feng. Lin Feng held the black dragon sword and directly sent the devil moon wheel flying. The great demon, you was currently in a state of rage, so there was no way for her to speak calmly. Therefore, let's continue running. Lin Feng circled around and returned to the Enlightenment ancient tree. The two evil god stone statues were still there. Stop her. Lin Feng ordered the two evil god stone statues. The two evil god stone statues immediately charged at the great demon Yu. The battle strength of the two evil god stone statues was very terrifying. They arrived in front of the great demon Yu and fought with her. The two sides were locked in a fierce battle. The great demon Yu was extremely angry. If there weren't two evil god stone statues, she believed that Lin Feng would have been beaten to the ground by her. But now, the two evil god stone statues were suppressing her. Moreover, the great demon Yu still hadn't fully recovered. Facing two evil god stone statues, she would indeed be at a disadvantage. Little Yu, can you sit down and talk to me calmly now? Lin Feng looked at the great demon Yu with a grin. Seeing Lin Feng's smiling face, the great demon Yu had the urge to punch Lin Feng's face. Lin Feng, you are ruthless. Today's enmity. I will remember it. I will definitely kill you. The great demon Yu hatefully said. Then she quickly left with the devil moon wheel, because she knew that she couldn't do anything to Lin Feng now. Moreover, she needed to find a place to recover. If her body couldn't recover, it would be very harmful to her body. After all, the great demon Yu had burned a large amount of her origin and essence blood. Seeing the great demon Yu leave Lin Feng's side, it seemed like he had thoroughly offended the great demon Yu. The great demon Yu wasn't the kind of woman who would willingly follow someone after being slept with. In the past, she was a female supreme. Today's matter, he would definitely not let it go. Of course, Lin Feng wouldn't continue to dwell on this matter. Since it had already happened, he would deal with whatever came his way. When the great devil Yu came to kill him again, he might have the ability to subdue the great devil Yu. At that time, he would definitely make the great devil Yu kneel on the ground and sing the song of conquest. Then he had to make great demon Yu wear a maid outfit. Thinking of this, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. At this time, he realized how evil he was. Lin Feng planned to move the Tao comprehending ancient tree into time and space. An immortal tree like the Tao comprehending ancient tree would be extremely useful for cultivation. Therefore, transplanting the tree of enlightenment into time and space was a very important matter. He did as he said. Lin Feng came to the side of the enlightenment ancient tree and began to carefully dig at it. As the saying goes, a person moves a living tree moves a dead tree. Therefore, one must be careful when transplanting trees. The slightest carelessness could cause the trees to die. The most important thing was to maintain the integrity of the roots and not damage the roots of the vegetation. If the roots of the vegetation were damaged, then it would be terrible. After Lin Feng transplanted the Tao comprehending ancient tree into time and space, his eyes looked at the two evil god stone statues. Before, Lin Feng tried to collect the two evil god stone statues and failed. Later, he tried to form a special connection with the two evil god stone statues. But at that time, he was attacked by the great devil Yu. Therefore, he didn't succeed. Now that the great devil Yu had left, she should be looking for a way out. He could use this time to see if he could collect the evil god stone statues. Lin Feng had already tried the magic power sacrificial method. This method couldn't collect the evil god stone statues. Therefore, Lin Feng bit his finger and dripped 2 drops of blood on the 2 evil god stone statues. He wanted to see if he could use his blood to refine the evil god stone statues. Lin Feng's blood was absorbed by the evil god stone statues, but Lin Feng and the evil god stone statues didn't have any connection. This made Lin Feng feel quite helpless. That's really strange. Is there really no way to collect the evil god stone statues? Lin Feng couldn't help but frown as he muttered to himself. The evil god stone statues were so powerful. Whether or not he could collect them was an extremely important matter in the future. At least for the current Lin Feng, it was an extremely important matter. Therefore, Lin Feng was anxious to collect the evil god stone statues as soon as possible. But from the looks of it, the situation wasn't optimistic. Of course, Lin Feng wasn't someone who would give up so easily. He knew that collecting the evil god stone statues would be difficult, but Lin Feng still didn't give up. He continued to try to collect the evil god stone statues. This time, Lin Feng circulated the stone man's 9 transformations immortal scripture. He didn't know if he could rely on the stone man's 9 transformations immortal scripture to form a connection with the evil god stone statues. After all, both sides had the word stone. When the stone man's 9 transformations immortal scripture was activated, Lin Feng immediately realized that there was a mysterious connection between him and the evil god stone statues. This made Lin Feng's face reveal an extremely shocked expression. Could it be that he could really collect the evil god stone statues? If he could do it, that would be too awesome. Thinking about how he would soon have 2 true immortal level guards by his side, Lin Feng immediately felt a sense of joy in his heart. At that time, if he met a god, he would kill a god. If he met a Buddha, he would kill a Buddha. Who could contend against him? Lin Feng continued to circulate the Stone Man's 9 transformations immortal scripture. As time passed, Lin Feng felt that his connection with the Stone Man's 9 transformations immortal scripture was getting closer and closer. After about 3 days, Lin Feng finally released his divine sense to collect the evil god stone statues. Shwa, shwa. 2 rays of light flashed, and the evil god stone statues were stored in Lin Feng's space. Ha 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 ha, I've finally collected the evil god stone statues. This is great. Even with Lin Feng's mentality, seeing that he had successfully collected the 2 evil god stone statues, he couldn't help but laugh excitedly. Of course, Lin Feng was also someone who was used to seeing big waves, so he quickly returned to normal. Lin Feng planned to leave this place quickly. Although the Dead Souls prison was a supreme treasure, Lin Feng didn't expect to be able to collect it. After all, this supreme treasure was extremely strange and hid countless secrets. It even had a deep relationship with the Black Sand Devil prison. Therefore, such a supreme treasure was very difficult to collect. Not long after, Lin Feng discovered that there was a broken void in this complete space. Lin Feng didn't see the great demon Yu. It seemed that the broken void was the work of the great demon Yu. Lin Feng flew out of the broken void and returned to the palace outside. Lin Feng didn't stay in the Dead Souls prison. He directly left the Dead Souls prison. Chapter 4704. Hurry up and leave. The expressions of the cultivators in the Dead Souls prison and the Black Sand Devil prison changed drastically when they saw what was happening. They hurriedly rushed out. They had to leave the Black Sand Devil prison as soon as possible. If the Black Sand Devil prison returned to its state of death, they would probably die before they could leave. Lin Feng was extremely fast. He knew how terrifying a place of death, like the Black Sand Devil prison, was. Fortunately, Lin Feng managed to leave the Black Sand Devil prison in time. Not long after Lin Feng left, the laws of the Black Sand Devil prison returned to normal. Clearly, there were many cultivators who didn't manage to leave the Black Sand Devil prison. However, those cultivators probably wouldn't be able to leave the Black Sand Devil prison. Lin Feng let out a long breath. The Dead Souls prison shook more and more violently. After about an hour, the Dead Souls prison disappeared from everyone's sight. Does the Dead Souls prison have its own god? Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter to himself. He felt that such a heaven-defying treasure should have its own god. It was just that Lin Feng hadn't discovered the god of the Dead Souls prison. The master of the Dead Souls prison was already dead. He wondered if the Dead Souls prison would find a new master. Lin Feng retracted his gaze. The matter of the Dead Souls prison was over. Therefore, he wouldn't continue to put too much thought into the Dead Souls prison. Lin Feng sensed Du Zhu's aura and regrouped with Du Zhu and the others. They didn't stop. They quickly left the place and continued towards the weak water domain. The matter of the Dead Souls prison would not end so quickly, even though the Dead Souls prison had already disappeared. Although the Dead Souls prison had disappeared, it was still a hot topic for countless cultivators. In addition, many people had obtained fortuitous encounters in the Black Sand Devil prison. For example, many cultivators had dug out immortal origin stones from the Black Sand Devil prison. The immortal origin stones in the Black Sand Devil prison were very special and precious. Another example was that some cultivators had found some ancient cave residences in the Black Sand Devil prison. Another example was that some cultivators who entered the Dead Souls prison had great gains. They had obtained a lot of things, so naturally they would sell the things they didn't need. As such, Black Sand City became extremely lively. The various major trading companies also began to move, preparing to go all out. However, all of this had nothing to do with Lin Feng. Lin Feng and the others had already arrived at the Weak Water region. The Weak Water region was famous in the Undying Realm because of the Sea of Weak Water. But in fact, ever since the Sea of Weak Water was cursed, the number of cultivators entering the Sea of Weak Water had decreased because the cursed Sea of Weak Water was very dangerous. Of course, it did not mean that no one had entered the Sea of Weak Water. In fact, there were still many cultivators who went to the Sea of Weak Water every year because there were many resources in the Sea of Weak Water that the outside world did not have. Therefore, those cultivators took the risk to enter the Sea of Weak Water to search for various resources. It was difficult for cultivators to survive, so those cultivators took the risk out of desperation. Otherwise, who would take such a great risk to enter the Sea of Weak Water? The domain lord of the Weak Water region, Nalan Linghan, was supported by the Sky Emperor and was extremely loyal to the Sky Emperor. When the Four Domain Alliance first attacked the Sin Domain, the Weak Water region was also the most active. However, the Weak Water region also suffered the greatest loss, almost completely annihilated. Only a few tens of thousands of cultivators escaped from the 3 million cultivators' army. This battle caused the Weak Water region to suffer heavy losses. Some time ago, Lin Feng had a grudge with the Weak Water region's old ancestor in the Black Sand region's stone workshop. Later, in the Dead Souls prison, he used the 2 evil god stone statues to injure the Weak Water region's old ancestor. In fact, the Weak Water region's old ancestor was none other than the hidden powerhouse of the Nalan clan, Weak Water City. This was an ancient city that was only 1,000 miles away from the Sea of Weak Water. Because it was relatively close to the Sea of Weak Water, it was very lively. Lin Feng and the others arrived at the Weak Water City. In the central square of the Weak Water City, there was a stone statue standing. That stone statue was of a woman noble and sacred. That stone statue was of the Weak Water goddess. Lin Feng and the others found an inn to stay in, following which they went out to eat. After rushing around for a long time, they naturally had to enjoy themselves. They found a high-class hotel, but did not ask for a private room. Instead, they found a place by the window and sat down. After ordering a table of good wine and dishes, they started eating. Many diners were discussing the legends of the Weak Water goddess. After dinner, Lin Feng planned to inquire about the specific situation of the Sea of Weak Water. Lin Feng spent a lot of money in the 100 Days Pavilion to inquire about the Sea of Weak Water. In addition, he also inquired about the Weak Water goddess. However, the news he obtained from the 100 Days Pavilion disappointed Lin Feng, because even a big powerhouse like the 100 Days Pavilion felt that the Weak Water goddess was just a legend. Someone made up the Weak Water goddess to exaggerate the Sea of Weak Water. Lin Feng did not know if this was true, but if it was true, why did he obtain the Bracelet of Misfortune? It was rumored that the Bracelet of Misfortune was the treasure of the Weak Water goddess. Perhaps he needed to enter the Sea of Weak Water to find out the secrets hidden in this matter. At night, Lin Feng saw Ning Xianwu sitting on the roof and looking at the moon. He flew up and sat beside Ning Xianwu. When Lin Feng was so close, Ning Xianwu's face could not help but blush when she smelled the hot male scent on Lin Feng's body. Of course, the two of them were already very familiar with each other. They were less reserved and more understanding. Ning Xianwu talked about her sister Ning Xianyu. My sister has not come to find me for a long time. In my memory, she has never not come to find me for such a long time. I wonder what she is doing. Ning Xianwu frowned slightly. She was obviously worried about her sister Ning Xianyu. Lin Feng laughed bitterly in his heart. He was considering whether to tell Ning Xianwu that she actually did not have a sister. Her sister, Ning Xianyu, was her other personality. But after thinking about it, Lin Feng decided not to say it. It was better if Ning Xianyu did not come out. Lin Feng still liked the soft girl Ning Xianwu. Your sister is trying to kill you. Don't you hate her? Lin Feng asked. Sister? What sister? Ning Xianwu said. Lin Feng frowned slightly. This tone did not sound right. You are Ning Xianyu? Lin Feng looked at the beautiful woman in front of him in shock. Where's my bitch sister? Hasn't she come to find you? Ning Xianyu asked. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Why did Ning Xianyu suddenly appear? He was really caught off guard. She didn't come. Lin Feng said, Bitch. Ning Xianyu cursed and said, That bitch must be hiding from me on purpose. Does she think that by hiding from me on purpose, she can escape from my pursuit? As soon as she finished speaking, Ning Xianyu soared into the sky and flew away. Where are you going? Lin Feng chased after her. I want to find that bitch and kill her. Ning Xianyu said fiercely. Ning Xianyu was Ning Xianwu. Lin Feng naturally could not let Ning Xianyu escape. He wanted to capture her. However, a jade talisman appeared in Ning Xianyu's hand. She crushed the jade talisman and was instantly teleported away. Chapter 47:05. She shouldn't have dual personality. Instead, she should have two souls. Or rather, I don't know why. These two souls are sharing a body. Duzu had arrived in the courtyard at some point and said, Lin Feng frowned slightly and said, Two souls? If there are two souls, how could they not know? At this moment, Lin Feng thought of Zi Yuanyuan. Zi Yuanyuan had two souls. One soul was Zi Yuanyuan's own soul. The other soul was the soul of Honorable Lord Yuan's sister. However, Honorable Lord Yuan's sister's soul belonged to a cultivator who had returned from her corpse. She had originally wanted to devour Zi Yuanyuan's soul and then control Zi Yuanyuan's body. This was equivalent to what many cultivators called reincarnation. However, things didn't go as planned. She didn't succeed even though Zi Yuanyuan was suppressed. However, Zi Yuanyuan had always been unwilling to be devoured. Therefore, Honorable Lord Yuan's sister's soul couldn't do anything to Zi Yuanyuan's soul for the time being. Therefore, if it was really one body with two souls, these two souls should be aware of each other's existence. However, Ning Xianyu and Ning Xianwu didn't know of each other's existence. Ning Xianwu said that her sister had been chasing after her. Ning Xianyu called Ning Xianwu AB*TCH and then searched everywhere for Ning Xianwu's whereabouts. She wanted to kill Ning Xianwu, but she didn't find anything. This was the strange part. Du Zhu said, There is a type of twin soul that is very special. Although their souls share a body, their souls appear at different times to control the body. Moreover, they don't know that they are sharing a body. Just like Fairy Ning, during the day, her soul dominates the body, and at night, her sister dominates the body. However, they always think that their bodies are the ones dominating the body. Therefore, between the two of them, one of them is avoiding the other's pursuit, and the other is pursuing the other's pursuit. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. What Du Zhu said was indeed a little mysterious. It sounded very inconceivable. Lin Feng asked, If what you said is true, then how do you explain the fact that Ning Xianwu has been controlling her body day and night? Du Zhu said, Perhaps during this period of time, her willpower has become very strong. Her willpower has suppressed Ning Xianyu's soul energy, which is why such a situation has occurred. Lin Feng sighed. Now that she's gone, I hope she's fine. Du Zhu smiled and said, Young master, you don't have to worry. They're not ordinary people, so they'll be fine. Lin Feng nodded. After returning to his room, Lin Feng retrieved the soul origin of the dead soul's prison master. Previously, Lin Feng had obtained a portion of his soul origin, but he had yet to refine it. Right now, Lin Feng's soul origin had reached the first layer of the sky immortal realm. If he could allow his soul energy to quickly break through to the true immortal realm, it would be of great help to Lin Feng. This was because at that time, Lin Feng's soul would be able to comprehend the mysteries of the true immortal realm. When Lin Feng's own cultivation reached the peak of the sky immortal realm, it would be much easier for Lin Feng to break through to the true immortal realm. Therefore, Lin Feng placed great importance on the cultivation of his soul. Although he had only obtained a portion of the soul origin of the dead soul's prison master, Lin Feng was already very satisfied. One should not be too greedy. Otherwise, it would be easy for a man to be greedy. Lin Feng began to refine the soul origin of the dead soul's prison master. Soon, a large amount of soul origin was refined by Lin Feng. The pure energy formed by the soul origin was absorbed by Lin Feng's body. At the same time, Lin Feng's soul strength kept increasing. Not long after, Lin Feng's soul energy had broken through. Second layer of the sky immortal realm. Third layer of the sky immortal realm. Fourth layer of the sky immortal realm. Fifth layer of the sky immortal realm. Sixth layer of the sky immortal realm. Seventh layer of the sky immortal realm. In the end, Lin Feng's soul energy stopped at the seventh layer of the sky immortal realm. This made Lin Feng extremely excited. This breakthrough, his soul energy level had increased by 6 levels. This was an extremely difficult thing to do, because Lin Feng's accumulation was too powerful. His cultivation realm was so, and so was his soul. Therefore, Lin Feng's soul energy breakthrough was also extremely difficult. It was precisely because of this. Lin Feng's soul energy breakthrough was so difficult, breaking through 6 levels in one go. That was even more difficult. Therefore, the breakthrough this time was definitely a huge improvement. After Lin Feng came out of seclusion, he planned to go to the Weak Water Sea with Du Zhu and others. As the Weak Water City was only 1,000 miles away from the Weak Water Sea, Lin Feng and others could reach the Weak Water Sea in half an hour. After they set off, they went straight in the direction of the Weak Water Sea. When they arrived at the Weak Water Sea, there was a change in the Weak Water Sea. Normally, the Weak Water Sea was still relatively calm. Moreover, there was rarely a sea storm in the Weak Water Sea, but now there was a storm in the Weak Water Sea. It was really unimaginable. The weak water is very scary. It contains the power of a curse. Don't let the weak water touch your body. Now that there is a storm in the Weak Water Sea, it is no longer suitable to enter. An old cultivator said, warning those cultivators who wanted to enter the Weak Water Sea to not act rashly, because they did not know what kind of changes would happen inside the Weak Water Sea. If this kind of change was very scary, there might be some disastrous things. Many cultivators nodded. Everyone stopped outside the Weak Water Sea, and then looked inside the Weak Water Sea. Look, there is a ship sailing out. A cultivator pointed to the depths of the Weak Water Sea. Everyone looked over and saw the ship sailing out from the depths of the Weak Water Sea. The ship could only be 40 to 50 meters long and 30 to 40 meters high. It should be an ancient ship driven by a cultivator. Now that there was a change in the Weak Water Sea, it quickly sailed out. But at this time, Towering waves rolled and swept toward the ancient ship. The ancient ship was instantly submerged by the huge waves. When the huge waves disappeared, the ancient ship also disappeared together. That is an ancient ship of cultivators. It has a powerful seal. How could it disappear in an instant? Could it be that it was sunk by the huge waves just now? Seeing the disappearance of the ancient ship, a cultivator suddenly said in disbelief. Many people saw the scene just now, and their faces could not help but reveal a look of horror. Chapter 47:06. The storm in the sea of weak water was too terrifying. Even Lin Feng felt his hair stand on end. It seems like we can't enter the sea of weak water for the time being. Let's find a place to rest first. Du Zhu said. Lin Feng nodded. They were only 30 miles away from the weak water town. They would soon arrive at the town. Lin Feng and the others arrived at the town. At this moment, a large number of cultivators had gathered in the town. Among them were many who originally intended to enter the sea of weak water, and many who were here to watch the show. Due to the storm inside the sea of weak water, no one dared to continue to stay outside the sea of weak water. After all, if they were swept into the sea of weak water by the storm, they would be in a miserable state. They would die without a burial place. Therefore, they could only return to the town and wait for the storm to dissipate. For a long time, the sea of weak water has never been swept by a storm. Now that there is such a big storm in the sea of weak water, is it a sign that something unimaginable is about to happen? I feel like something is really going to happen. I just don't know what will happen. Could it be related to the goddess of weak water? The goddess of weak water is just a legend, right? There are no Tao scriptures that have detailed records of the goddess of weak water. Only some myths have legends about her. Moreover, the later generations think that the legend of the goddess of weak water was deliberately created by someone. By creating the story of the goddess of weak water, everyone would be in awe of the sea of weak water. The fact that the sea of weak water is a cursed sea area spread like wildfire, so many people don't dare to enter the sea of weak water to search for opportunities. However, some top forces have extraordinary means and are fearless. Because many people don't dare to enter the sea of weak water to search for opportunities, their competitors have decreased a lot. In fact, these top forces have indeed obtained a lot of great opportunities from the sea of weak water over the years. So, you think that the legend of the goddess of weak water is spread by some top forces behind the scenes? Yes, that's what I think. But I don't think so. I think that maybe there really is a goddess of weak water in this world. There's no smoke without fire. Since there's such a legend, it's possible that the goddess of weak water really appeared. Who knows if it's true or not? Even if there really was a goddess of weak water, it was a matter of tens of thousands of years ago. The era of titled gods has already ended for hundreds of millions of years. If there really was such a titled god, who knows how many tens of thousands of years she would have died. Indeed, we don't need to worry about whether there is a weak water goddess or not. What makes me most curious is the change in the sea of weak water. What caused the change in the sea of weak water? It really makes me curious. It would be great if I could explore the sea of weak water. Brother, don't worry. When the abnormality dissipates, we can go to the sea of weak water to have a look. I wonder if there will be any great opportunities. In the weak water town, many practitioners were talking about the changes in the weak water sea. Everyone was waiting for the opportunity to arrive. One day later, there was a piece of news about the weak water goddess. It was said that when there was a change in the weak water sea, the weak water temple would appear. And in the weak water temple, there were countless treasures and inheritances. This news immediately caused an uproar. Because if this news was true, then it could prove that there really was such a person as the weak water goddess. And before everyone thought that the matter of the weak water goddess was just a fabrication. Moreover, this news also involved the weak water temple. If there really was a weak water temple, then naturally it was what everyone was looking forward to, because maybe they would be able to get some great opportunities from the weak water temple. At the end of the era, everyone was more eager for all kinds of opportunities, because it was getting closer and closer to the end of the era. Every time they got an opportunity, maybe the chance of survival would increase by a little, and the number of times they could get an opportunity was obviously not many. Everyone naturally had to seize every opportunity as much as possible. For example, this time, Lin Feng also heard the news about the weak water temple. He was also waiting for the change in the weak water sea to disappear. But the storm in the weak water sea was getting more and more violent and had no intention of disappearing. The storm lasted for more than a month and did not dissipate. And during this period of time, the change in the weak water sea also spread out. Many experts came one after another, and everyone wanted to go to the weak water sea to try their luck. Maybe there really was a harvest. The storm in the weak water sea lasted for 3 months, and during these 3 months, Lin Feng had been in closed-door cultivation. The outside world was extremely restless because the longer the change in the weak water sea lasted, this showed that the opportunity in the weak water sea may be more powerful. The opportunities in the weak water sea were becoming more and more attractive. Therefore, everyone was waiting for the opportunity in the weak water sea to appear. So during this period of time, the weak water town was overcrowded. Of course, it was not far from the weak water city. So many cultivators went to the weak water city and did not stay in the weak water town. It was not too late to rush to the weak water sea after the weak water sea returned to normal. Because Lin Feng was in closed-door cultivation in the time and space, 3 months in the outside world was actually equivalent to 3 years in the time and space. During this period of time, Lin Feng's harvest was huge. He sorted out his Tao and various remarkable abilities. In addition, Lin Feng also stabilized his realm. Now Lin Feng was extremely proficient in the use of his own strength. When Lin Feng came out of closed-door cultivation, he found something that surprised him. The 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar had developed his body quite well with the help of the 9 Transformations Immortal Scripture, so the strength of the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar had improved by leaps and bounds. When Lin Feng came out of closed-door cultivation, the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar had broken through to the peak of the Sky Immortal Realm. The distance to the true Immortal Realm. There was still one more step, but after breaking through to the peak of the Sky Immortal Realm, the improvement of the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar stopped. Lin Feng knew it would not be so easy to break through again. It needed a powerful opportunity to make the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar complete the improvement again. But this kind of opportunity was not easy to find. If he could find such an opportunity in the weak water sea, it would be great. Lin Feng now could not wait for the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar to break through to the true Immortal Realm, because if the 9 Orifices Stone Man avatar could break through to the true Immortal Realm. Chapter 4707. Lin Feng knew that the 9 Orifices Stone Man clone could not be rushed to break through to the true Immortal Realm. One had to take one step at a time. Rice had to be eaten one bite at a time. It was unrealistic to want to run thousands of miles in one step and eat fatso in one bite. The storm outside had weakened. Therefore, a large number of cultivators began to rush from the Ruoshui city to the Sea of Weak Water. Many people stayed in the Ruoshui town, waiting for the storm to completely dissipate. It would not be too late to go to the Sea of Weak Water. On this day, 3 suns appeared in the depths of the Sea of Weak Water. They illuminated the world. Oh, my God, how could there be 3 suns? Countless people could not help but exclaim, unable to believe their eyes. 3 suns appeared in the distance. This was inconceivable. Anyone who saw this scene would be shocked and moved. It was really strange for 3 suns to appear together. When the 3 suns appeared, the storm in the Sea of Weak Water quickly dissipated. Not long after, the storm in the Sea of Weak Water completely disappeared. The storm in the Sea of Weak Water disappeared. Quickly go to the depths of the Sea of Weak Water to see what kind of opportunity has appeared. Countless cultivators shouted excitedly, and then flew in the direction of the Sea of Weak Water. At this time, the 3 suns disappeared. This scene naturally could not be hidden from everyone. Why did the 3 suns disappear? The 3 suns seem to be related to the change in the Sea of Weak Water. I wonder what the 3 suns are. Many people began to talk about it. The 3 suns were very strange, but they did not think that they were real suns, because there was only one sun now, and it was outside the 9 heavens. The opportunity in the Sea of Weak Water must be amazing. A cultivator said. More and more cultivators flew in the direction of the Sea of Weak Water. But at this time, a dense mass of giant fish monsters rushed out of the Sea of Weak Water. These giant fish monsters were very large. Each of them was 30 to 40 meters long, with their bloody mouths wide open, revealing their dense fangs. The scales on their bodies were as rough, thick, and hard as the scales of a crocodile. One after another, gigantic fish monsters charged towards the cultivators, flying in the sky to devour them. Many cultivators did not even have time to react before they were devoured by those giant fish monsters. There were also some cultivators who reacted faster. When the giant fish monsters rushed out to attack them, the cultivators in front of them immediately reacted. The cultivators then brought out their powerful magic treasures and attacked the fish monsters. However, their magic treasures only left a few marks on the giant fish monster's body after they bombarded it with their magic treasures. It was unable to break through the giant fish monster's defense. Therefore, after seeing this scene, many cultivators were shocked. Before they could react, those cultivators had already been swallowed by the giant fish monster. Of course, not everyone was unable to defeat the giant fish monster. Some particularly powerful cultivators unleashed their might and killed the giant fish monsters that were attacking them. But even so, the cultivators couldn't help but jump in fright. Many people thought that there were no living creatures in the Sea of Weak Water. Furthermore, in the past, when many people went to the Weak Water Sea, they did not see any living creatures. However, after this storm, such a terrifying monster fish appeared. It was extremely strange. These strange fish were able to live in the Weak Water Sea, indicating that they were not afraid of the curse power in the Weak Water Sea. Besides these strange fish, were there any other living creatures? This made everyone puzzled, and their hearts were incomparably dignified. After launching a wave of attack, the giant fish monster dived into the Weak Water Sea and disappeared without a trace. After the giant fish monster disappeared, many cultivators cried bitterly because many of their relatives and friends had died under the attack of the giant fish monster. There are so many terrifying living creatures in the Weak Water Sea. I don't know which bastard said that there were no living creatures in the Weak Water Sea. Someone cursed. Before, the cultivators who entered the Weak Water Sea rarely went deep into the Weak Water Sea. I guess the living creatures in the Weak Water Sea originally lived in the depths of the Weak Water Sea. That area was too dangerous. Cultivators would not enter it, so they could not see the living creatures in the Weak Water Sea. Over time, the rumor that there were no living creatures in the Weak Water Sea spread out. But this time the storm swept the living creatures outside the Weak Water Sea to the outer area. So, as soon as everyone entered the Weak Water Sea, they were attacked by these terrifying living creatures. A cultivator said. The others nodded. This cultivator's inference was very likely to be true. But even if there were terrifying living creatures in the weak water sea, it still could not stop everyone's enthusiasm. No one flinched. Many people entered the weak water sea in groups, and the wealthier cultivators took a powerful ancient ship to enter the weak water sea. The ancient ship's defense was tyrannical, and generally it would not be destroyed unless it encountered a huge storm. Even if it encountered many powerful living creatures in the weak water sea, it could also withstand the opponent's attack for a while. Lin Feng, Du Zhu, evil dominator saint, and the two ghost emperors flew into the weak water sea. The weak water sea was a very large sea area, and it was said that the weak water sea was about the size of 3 weak water regions. A god-state cultivator could not fly over the weak water sea for hundreds of years. It was extremely easy to get lost in such a large sea area, but Lin Feng was not afraid of getting lost. If he really got lost, he could just use the heart compass to locate him. When the heart compass was looking for some special places, things, or people, Sacred Martin, Immortal, would ask Lin Feng for benefits. But Sacred Martin, Immortal, would not ask Lin Feng for benefits if the heart compass could locate him. On the 3rd day in the weak water sea, Lin Feng suddenly felt his eyelids twitching violently as he passed through a sea area, which made him frown slightly. Was something going to happen? Otherwise, why would his eyelids twitch violently? Everyone be careful. Lin Feng reminded. Du Zhu and others nodded. But at this moment, the whole sea area was suddenly filled with a powerful space-time force, and everyone was wrapped up by that powerful space-time force. Lin Feng was also wrapped up by that powerful space-time force. The next moment, Lin Feng sensed that his body was being pulled into a parallel space. When Lin Feng reappeared, he was already on an island, surrounded by blue waves. He was the only one on the island. This should still be the weak water sea. Lin Feng knew that he had been schemed against. He looked around gloomily, but did not see anyone coming out. Chapter 47:08. Brat, you're still as arrogant as ever. But did you know that this place will be your burial ground? At this moment, a sinister and terrifying voice suddenly resounded. Following that, an old man stepped out of the void. When he saw the old man, he was shocked. Lin Feng sneered when he saw the old man. The old man was none other than the patriarch of the weak water realm. Lin Feng did not expect that he would be tricked by the old man. And here I was wondering who it was. So, it's you, a stray dog. Lin Feng sneered at the patriarch of the weak water realm. Hearing Lin Feng's mockery, the patriarch of the weak water realm trembled with anger. What a tyrannical figure he was! What a lofty existence he was! As far as he was concerned, Lin Feng was nothing more than an ant or a dog. Back in the Dead Souls prison, the patriarch of the weak water realm had suffered a loss. However, the patriarch of the weak water realm believed that the reason he had suffered a loss was not because of Lin Feng's strength. It was because Lin Feng controlled the 2 evil god statues. Brat, if it weren't for the 2 evil god statues, who do you think you are? How dare you speak to this patriarch in such a tone? The patriarch of the weak water realm looked at Lin Feng with a sinister gaze and said coldly, the killing intent in his eyes was not concealed at all. Said Lin Feng, smiling coldly, "Old bastard, you've been living for so long, haven't you? Don't you know that a cultivator's strength is based on his own strength, magical treasures, and various hidden means? Controlling the evil god statues is my own ability. You can't even see through this. I really don't know how you cultivated to the true immortal realm. Brat, you're talking nonsense. Let's see how you'll die later." The patriarch of the weak water realm said coldly. Lin Feng sneered. You're not the only one who took action this time, right? Where are the others? Come out too. Brat, you're done for. Today, no one in this world can save you. A cold voice sounded out, and then another expert walked out. Patriarch of the Black Sand region. He was also an old acquaintance of Lin Feng. Many people want to kill you, but in the end, you are destined to die in our hands. A third expert walked out. It was the old ancestor of the 8 Extreme Palace. This brat is Lin Baiqian's son, Yang Qi said. He has incredible treasures and incredible destiny. Once we kill him, all of his treasures and divine abilities will be ours. Furthermore, we can devour his destiny. If we can devour his providence, it will be of great help to us. Perhaps in the future, it will allow us to reach a higher level, break through to the saint realm that everyone dreams of. The 4th expert stepped forward. Lin Feng had seen this expert before. He was one of the 6 true immortal experts who had besieged him in the Dead Souls prison. However, Lin Feng didn't recognize him and didn't know who this expert was. A total of 4 true immortal experts had moved Lin Feng to this place, wanting to kill Lin Feng. The reason why they were so careful was because they had suffered at the hands of Lin Feng before. They had moved Du Zhu and the rest to another place because they were worried that Du Zhu and the rest would ruin their plans. Now that Lin Feng was trapped by the 4 experts, Lin Feng wasn't worried at all. Lin Feng said indifferently, back in the Dead Souls prison, you 4 stray dogs were lucky and managed to escape. Since you've seen yours truly again, you should be obedient and scram as far as you can. Don't continue to cause trouble for yours truly. Hearing Lin Feng's arrogant words, the 4 true immortal experts' faces turned dark. Lin Feng was simply too arrogant and looked down on them completely. The 4 true immortals were naturally enraged. The old ancestor of the Black Sand region sneered, Boy, aren't you just relying on the 2 evil statues? Today, we have laid down a great array here that is enough to destroy your evil god statue. Once your evil god statue is destroyed, we are looking forward to seeing what kind of expression you will have. The old ancestor of the Ba Ji Palace burst into laughter and said, At that time, let's see how you'll kneel on the ground like a dog and beg us not to kill you. This ancestor is really looking forward to this scene. It was reasonable to say that experts like the 4 true immortals wouldn't haggle too much with a junior. But Lin Feng was different. Lin Feng was not an ordinary person. Previously, they had suffered at the hands of Lin Feng, which was a great humiliation to them. Now that they were lucky enough to meet Lin Feng in the sea of weak water, they naturally wanted to ruthlessly humiliate Lin Feng before killing Lin Feng. Is that so? I'd like to see what kind of formation you 4 old wastes have arranged to deal with me. Lin Feng said with a sneer, still with a disdainful expression. For old wastes. After hearing Lin Feng's new name for them, the corners of the 4 true immortals' mouths twitched violently. Each of them was simply furious. Lin Feng's contempt and humiliation to them made their hatred for Lin Feng reach the extreme, like a volcano that could erupt at any time. The old ancestor of the Weakwater region said in a deep voice, 3 Taoists, let's return to our positions. All right. The other 3 nodded. Then the 4 experts flew toward the 4 peaks. Then they stopped at the top of the 4 peaks. Lin Feng was surrounded in the middle of the 4 peaks. Lin Feng knew those 4 positions should be the core of the formation. Sky formation. The old ancestor of the Weakwater region shouted coldly. Earth formation. The old ancestor of the Black Sand region spoke at the same time. Xian formation. The old ancestor of the Baji Palace also shouted coldly. Yellow formation. At the same time, another true immortal expert, that Lin Feng did not know also shouted coldly. This true immortal expert was called Taoist Qin Xian. This person was said to be a famous rogue cultivator expert. The major forces were most afraid of these powerful rogue cultivators. This was because these powerful rogue cultivators were usually all alone in the world. If they took a fancy to any treasure, they would directly kill, seize the treasure, and then escape. They were not afraid of the revenge of the other party's family. If they had a family behind them, they would be afraid of many things. For example, they were worried that the other party would take revenge on their family, and so on. Rogue cultivators would not worry about these. Therefore, powerful rogue cultivators were the most lawless kind of people. These four experts had set up the heaven-earth-black-yellow formation. In the void, countless formation runes intertwined together. The sky formation emitted the aura of heaven. The earth formation emitted the aura of thick earth. The Xian formation emitted the aura of great Tao. The yellow formation emitted the aura of supreme. The sky formation represented heaven. The earth formation represented thick earth. The Xian formation represented the great Tao. On the other hand, the yellow formation represented the supremacy of the myriad heavens and realms. It represented the pinnacle of the cultivators. The four formations intertwined. Suddenly, a world-destroying aura pervaded between heaven and earth. Chapter 4709. Lin Feng had never heard of the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation. However, even so, Lin Feng could feel the terror of this formation. It was definitely an extremely heaven-defying formation. Lin Feng felt that it was a little tricky. Of course, it was just a little tricky. Lin Feng was not completely helpless against it. After all, Lin Feng was now the only heavenly master in the world. He had mastered many mysterious techniques that could resolve the dangerous situation brought about by the formation. At this moment, the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation began to show its power. The formation runes densely covering the void was only the first step. After the formation runes sealed the surroundings and trapped Lin Feng, the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation began to evolve an extremely terrifying attack. First of all, the heaven formation evolved heaven's hands one after another and blasted towards Lin Feng. The earth formation evolved earth mountains one after another and crashed towards Lin Feng. The Xian formation evolved many great Tao attacks, such as Space Tao, Destruction Tao, Lightning Tao, Wind, and Rain Tao. All kinds of great Tao condensed into a destructive attack that blasted towards Lin Feng. The yellow formation, on the other hand, produced numerous illusory figures. The origins of those illusory figures were extremely extraordinary. Every single one of them had unimaginable origins, or perhaps an ancient sage emperor, or an ancient demon emperor, or perhaps an ancient demon lord, and so on. Every single one of them had once been invincible in an era. The attacks condensed by the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation were extremely terrifying. Over the years, Lin Feng had seen all kinds of formations. However, it was his first time seeing such a terrifying formation like the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation. Therefore, Lin Feng was extremely shocked. How terrifying would the power unleashed by such a tyrannical formation be? Just thinking about it was enough to make one tremble in fear. Amazing! Amazing! I didn't expect you four old trash to be able to set up such a powerful formation. After feeling the power of the formation, Lin Feng couldn't help but frown and say, "Little bastard, you're about to die, yet you still dare to boast shamelessly here." Could it be that he knew he was going to die, so he wanted to go crazy before he died? Since that's the case, we can fulfill your wish right now. The 8-level palace's old ancestor's voice was extremely cold. He was in charge of controlling the profound formation. At this very moment, the various attacks that he had condensed from the profound formation on his forehead had already arrived in front of Lin Feng. Of course, there were other attacks. They had also arrived in front of Lin Feng. It charged towards Lin Feng. The 4 true immortal realm experts originally thought that Lin Feng would have a hard time dealing with them. However, when those powerful attacks bombarded Lin Feng stepped in the void. Lin Feng seemed to have a special kind of magic. When he walked in the void, he actually dodged the attacks of various formations one after another. Therefore, after seeing this scene, everyone's face revealed an expression of disbelief. The attacks of the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow formations were so tyrannical and so densely packed. However, those attacks couldn't touch Lin Feng's body. No matter how powerful the attacks of the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow formations were, if they couldn't touch the opponent's body, what was the use of these attacks? The current situation was like this. The attacks of the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow formations were extremely terrifying, but they couldn't touch Lin Feng's body. This made the 4 true immortal realm experts' faces extremely ugly. They had never thought that such a situation would happen. The 4 true immortal realm experts were all old and experienced people. They instantly understood the reason for everything. Lin Feng must be extremely proficient in formations, so he could avoid the attacks of the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow formations. Other than this reason, they couldn't find any other reason to explain the current situation. The actual situation was just as the 4 true immortals had guessed. The reason why Lin Feng could avoid so many attacks of the formations was that his formation skills were extremely high. This was also the reason why he could handle it with ease. However, Lin Feng wouldn't have any carelessness. Although he avoided the attacks of the 4 formations, it wasn't easy to avoid them. If there was a slight mistake, it would inevitably be another situation. The heaven, earth, profound, and yellow formation was indeed terrifying. And now Lin Feng was quickly approaching the ancestor of the weak water domain. He decided to quickly kill one person so that he could better break the formation. If he continued to stay in the formation, he would be continuously attacked by these 4 people. Lin Feng couldn't guarantee that he could always avoid the attacks of the 4 formations. Lin Feng hadn't brought out the evil god stone statue at this time because Lin Feng planned to bring it out when he reached the ancestor of the weak water domain. If he brought out the evil god stone statue now, it would also become the target of the formation's attacks. And the evil god stone statue would definitely not be able to constantly avoid the terrifying attacks released by the formations. Sacrifice the heaven, earth, profound, and yellow swords to kill him. At this time, the ancestor of the weak water domain shouted in a deep voice, "Okay." The other 3 experts responded one after another. Then each of them brought out a sword. The 4 of them brought out a total of 4 swords. And these 4 swords were the so-called heaven-earth mysterious yellow 4 swords. These were 4 bronze swords. These 4 bronze swords had extraordinary origins and could be integrated with the heaven-earth mysterious yellow great formation. When the heaven-earth mysterious yellow great formation was activated, the heaven-earth mysterious yellow 4 swords and the heaven-earth mysterious yellow great formation could form a very special connection. This connection, it could allow the heaven-earth mysterious yellow 4 swords and the heaven-earth mysterious yellow great formation to blend together. Therefore, the power of the heaven-earth mysterious yellow 4 swords and the heaven-earth mysterious yellow great formation would be greatly enhanced. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The heaven-earth mysterious yellow 4 swords quickly slashed towards Lin Feng. Each sword vibrated with an extremely terrifying aura. After feeling the power of the heaven-earth mysterious yellow force swords, Lin Feng's face suddenly sank. The other party really had a lot of means. Now his plan to quickly rush to the front of the weak water domain ancestor and then kill him was completely impossible. Now Lin Feng had to dodge the attacks released by the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four great formation, while resisting the attacks of the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords. Facing the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords, Lin Feng brought out the heaven-swallowing jar. He wanted to try to use the jar to swallow the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords. But the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords were too powerful. The sword chi that was released directly shook the heaven-swallowing jar away. Then the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords divided into four directions, surrounded Lin Feng, and slashed towards Lin Feng. The four genuine immortal experts wanted to use the heaven-earth mysterious yellow four swords to kill Lin Feng in the Great Formation. Chapter 47:10. At this moment, the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords had completely locked onto Lin Feng's aura. Even the surrounding void was sealed. Therefore, Lin Feng could not avoid the attack of the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. He could only resist the attack of the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. Therefore, Lin Feng had to deal with the situation carefully, or else he might also be in trouble. Lin Feng was very clear about this. Lin Feng had many treasures on him, but he had to be particular about what treasure to use to fight against the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. He had to find a treasure that could restrain the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. The heaven-swallowing jar that Lin Feng had taken out was a treasure that could restrain the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. This treasure could devour all kinds of magic treasures in the world and forcefully erase the spiritual left in the magic treasure. Of course, Lin Feng had failed when he tried to use the heaven-swallowing jar to devour the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords. Lin Feng had already guessed this situation. How could it be so easy to restrain the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords? Lin Feng was not discouraged. After taking out the heaven-swallowing jar, Lin Feng took out a few more powerful treasures. For example, Stone of Purgatory Suppression, Supreme Demon Iron, and the Creation Gourd. Stone of Purgatory Suppression could suppress everything in the world, be it living creatures or magic treasures. Stone of Purgatory Suppression could suppress them. Supreme Demon Iron was incomparably hard. No treasure could destroy the defense of Supreme Demon Iron. The Creation Gourd could release a powerful devouring power. The most powerful thing about the Creation Gourd was that it could devour cultivators. The most powerful thing about the heaven-swallowing jar was that it could devour magic treasures. But in fact, whether it was the Creation Gourd or the heaven-swallowing jar, they were both treasures that could devour both cultivators and magic treasures. It was just that the focus of the two treasures was different. Now, after Lin Feng took out the heaven-swallowing jar, he took out the Creation Gourd. All of a sudden, the Creation Gourd formed a very special connection with the heaven-swallowing jar. One could vaguely feel that the heaven-swallowing jar and the Creation Gourd had formed a Taiji diagram. The heaven-swallowing jar represented the yin pole of the Taiji diagram, while the Gourd of Fortune represented the yang pole of the Taiji diagram. Yin-yang integration. The cycle was endless. After the two supreme treasures formed this special connection, they immediately released an even more powerful devouring power. The heaven-earth mystic yellow swords, on the other hand, needed to resist the devouring of the two supreme treasures, and their power was greatly reduced. At the same time, the Stone of Purgatory released a terrifying power that suppressed the heaven-earth black and yellow swords. Suddenly, the four swords of heaven, earth, black, and yellow were suppressed in the void, unable to move. After seeing this scene, the expressions of the four true immortals changed drastically. Lin Feng's various methods made them extremely shocked. The expressions of the four true immortals turned solemn. Lin Feng was indeed very difficult to deal with. They had no choice but to admit this. Now that the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow had been suppressed, it was an extremely bad thing for them, because the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow were extremely important to the formation of heaven and earth mystic yellow. Not only could the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow complement the formation of heaven and earth mystic yellow. Moreover, they were the supreme treasures that guarded the four formation eyes of the heaven-earth mystic yellow great array. Once the heaven-earth mystic yellow four swords were suppressed, the power of the heaven-earth mystic yellow great array would abruptly weaken. Therefore, the four true immortals began to operate the heaven-earth mystic yellow formation in a frenzy. Powerful dermic powers flowed into the formation endlessly to activate the power of the formation. Lin Feng clearly felt that the power of the heaven-earth mystic yellow array had increased by a lot. At that moment, the supreme demon iron rapidly grew in size. Soon, it was as big as a mountain. The supreme demon iron covered Lin Feng and his many supreme treasures. Demonic light swirled around, protecting Lin Feng and the others. When the various attacks of the heaven and earth Xianhuang Great Formation, such as the Hand of Heaven, the thick earth divine mountain, various great Tao theurgies, and the phantoms of many powerhouses came crashing down, the supreme devil iron resisted those powerful attacks. Some of the attacks landed on the protective light shield formed by the supreme demon iron. The supreme demon iron's means were extraordinary. The stellar transposition moved the attacks that landed on the protective light shield to other positions. Those attacks eventually landed on the supreme demon iron's body. It hurts so much. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. The supreme demon iron let out a miserable cry. The supreme demon iron had a deity. It was very special. It was somewhat similar to a weapon cultivator, but it was not a weapon cultivator. It was equivalent to a relatively different magic treasure. Although it screamed extremely miserably, it did not suffer any harm. At this time, Lin Feng had arrived in front of the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array. Lin Feng was familiar with the structure of the formation, so he naturally knew what the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array played in it. Powerful dermic powers enveloped the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array. Then, he forcibly erased the divine thoughts left by the ancestor of the weak water realm. After the divine thoughts were erased, the ancestor of the weak water realm could not help but let out an incomparably shrill cry. The control of the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array was snatched away by Lin Feng. The ancestor of the weak water realm suffered a backlash. Although the ancestor of the weak water realm suffered a backlash, it was not a particularly serious injury. However, Lin Feng's snatching of the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array was a huge blow to the four genuine immortals. The four genuine immortals originally wanted to rely on the heaven and earth mystic yellow array and the four swords to kill Lin Feng. Now, it seemed that the hope was relatively slim. After forcibly erasing the divine thoughts of the weak water realm ancestor of the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array, Lin Feng collected many supreme treasures. Then he attacked the ancestor of the weak water realm. Because the heaven and earth mystic yellow array had lost its connection with the four swords of heaven and earth mystic yellow array, its power suddenly dropped. Therefore, it was even more difficult for the attacks to hurt Lin Feng. After seeing this scene, the eyelids of the four genuine immortals twitched violently. Lin Feng's array method was so brilliant that it shocked them. Don't be afraid. The array is not broken. If we work together, we will definitely be able to kill him. The ancestor of the weak water realm shouted loudly. He took out his life source magic treasure, the azure dragon mirror. Then the ancestor of the weak water realm said loudly, "Everyone, let's take out our life source magic treasures to suppress the array of the heaven and earth mystic yellow array. The power of the heaven and earth mystic yellow array will immediately increase." However, the ancestor of the black sand region, the ancestor of the Ba Ji Palace, and the rogue cultivator Taoist Green Immortal were already thinking of retreating. Lin Feng's means were so terrifying that it really frightened the three of them. Without saying a word, the three of them turned around and fled. The ancestor of the weak water realm was stunned. Obviously, he did not expect that the three of them would leave him behind and flee alone. Bastard. Chapter 47:11. Lin Feng knew how difficult it would be to kill 4 true immortals at once. Lin Feng was satisfied that he had managed to kill a cultivator of the true immortal level, which was already good enough. Lin Feng used the formation splitting technique and tore the formation apart. Then he chased after the ancestor. Lin Feng had mastered the Tao of Space and the Tao of Speed from the golden-winged Great Peng's clone. Therefore, even the ancestor of the water tribe wasn't as fast as Lin Feng. If they fought from a distance, Lin Feng wouldn't be able to defeat him. Lin Feng was definitely not a match for the ancestor. However, the ancestor's speed was not comparable to Lin Feng's. Therefore, Lin Feng caught up with the ancestor. Lin Feng and the ancestor of the Ruo Shui tribe didn't say much. Lin Feng summoned the 2 daimon statues. The 2 fiend statues charged at the ancestor with swords in their hands. The 2 sides clashed. Back then, the 2 evil godstone statues had fought against 6 true immortals and defeated them. The weak water realm ancestor was no match for the 2 evil god statues. He was forced into a difficult situation by the 2 statues. "Lin Feng, do you really want to kill us all?" the ancestor asked with an ugly expression. He sensed a dangerous aura. The 2 evil godstone statues were just too terrifying. If he was careless, he would die in Lin Feng's hands. The ancestor of the weak water realm naturally knew this. Therefore, the ancestor of Ruo Shui tribe wanted to negotiate with Lin Feng. His previous question was naturally to open up a gap in this negotiation. Lin Feng sneered. "Old thing, didn't you want to kill me before? Now you have the face to ask me if I want to kill you all? You have any shame?" The ancestor said, "We had some misunderstandings before. Now, we can resolve this misunderstanding. As long as you don't kill me, I can give you endless treasures. I can even give you immortal sutras, top-grade supreme treasures, supreme abilities, and so on. Everyone in the world is here for profit. If you don't kill me, you can get so many good things, and I can keep my life. This is beneficial to both of us. I can swear that I will never be your enemy again." Lin Feng sneered and said coldly, "It's too late to negotiate with me now. You have to pay the price for doing something wrong. If you don't pay the price for doing something wrong, then what's the use of the law enforcement hall? Then what's the use of the various dynasties?" The ancestor's expression turned uglier after hearing Lin Feng's words. Lin Feng had no intention of making peace with him. This made the old ancestor's heart sink to the bottom of the valley. If the ancestor of the Ruo Shui tribe had known Lin Feng was so strong, he wouldn't have offended him. However, in this world, there was no medicine for regret. Even if he regretted it now, it was too late. The attacks of the 2 statues grew fiercer and fiercer, and the ancestor found it harder and harder to resist. Lin Feng took out the Ho-E bow and the sunshot divine arrow. Whoosh! He pulled the bow and shot. The sun-shooting divine arrow turned into a dazzling ray of light and shot towards the patriarch of the weak water domain. The old ancestor of the weak water realm actually saw the shooting sun god arrow shooting towards him. He wanted to dodge. However, every time he tried to dodge the sun-slaying divine arrow, he realized that he could not dodge the sun-slaying divine arrow. This was because he was being held back by the two evil god statues. There was no time to dodge the sunshot divine arrow. Pooh! The sunshot divine arrow pierced through the ancestor's head. Blood. Immediately, blood flowed out. The ancestor did not die immediately. He even saw the blood flowing from his forehead. Fear engulfed the weak water realm ancestor's body. He never thought that he would die like this. Originally, he was confident that he could seize the opportunity at the end of the epic and survive until the next epic. However, everything was impossible to achieve. The ancestor couldn't understand now. They were just dealing with a young cultivator who was not even a rogue cultivator, but they were defeated again and again. Now, even his own life was at stake. Why was it like this? The ancestor couldn't understand. Shouldn't it be as easy as moving a finger to kill a junior like Lin Feng? But that was not the case. The next moment, the weak water realm ancestor felt his consciousness sink into darkness. The ancestor's eyes were wide open. He died with a grievance. His body fell toward the ground, but he didn't fall to the ground. A ball of heavenly fire wrapped around the weak water domain ancestor and instantly burned her body to ashes. Only the origin and storage ring were left. Lin Feng put away the original strength and the ring of ancestor Ruo Shui tribe. He didn't know where Du Zhu and the others were teleported to, but with their means, they would be fine. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't have to worry too much about the safety of Du Zhu and the others. Lin Feng didn't continue to stay on this island. He left the island. Then, he came to another island. Lin Feng decided to go into seclusion to refine the ancestor's origin first. He wanted to see if he could still improve his cultivation. If he could, it would naturally be a happy thing. Now, Lin Feng's cultivation was at the 9th layer of the Emperor Lord realm. His soul was at the 7th layer of the celestial immortal realm. Lin Feng began to refine the ancestor's origin. In fact, Lin Feng also knew his current situation. His body's resistance to the true immortal's origin was already very strong. Therefore, the true immortal's origin couldn't greatly improve his cultivation like before. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't know if absorbing the original strength of the ancestor of the water tribe would be able to improve his cultivation. After refining the ancestor's origin, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. This was because the origin of the water realm ancestor had increased his cultivation once again. Lin Feng successfully broke through from the 9th layer of the Emperor Lord realm to the 10th layer of the Emperor Lord realm. Next, he had to prepare to break through to the loose immortal realm. And Lin Feng's soul level broke through from the 7th layer of the Sky Immortal Realm to the 8th layer of the Sky Immortal Realm. His cultivation level and soul level had both improved. It could be said that it was a double blessing. Lin Feng immediately took out dozens of storage rings. Among these storage rings, one was the storage ring of the ancestor, and some were the storage rings of the creatures imprisoned in the dead soul's prison. Lin Feng had been busy cultivating and didn't check them. So now, he planned to check if there were any good things in these storage rings. Of course, Lin Feng also obtained a mysterious ball of light. Chapter 47:12. Lin Feng's spiritual will first invaded the storage ring of the ancestor. There were indeed many good things in the ring. There were all kinds of immortal stones piled up like mountains, all kinds of heavenly treasures, all kinds of immortal iron, divine stones, and so on. In addition, there were two true immortal level magic treasures. One was the life treasure of the ancestor, the azure dragon mirror. The other was a jade maiden immortal robe. It was a defensive magic treasure that was as light as a veil. Female cultivators could use it, but male cultivators obviously had no use for this supreme treasure. There were also many kinds of divine ability inheritances. However, these divine ability inheritances were found by the ancestor himself. Although these inheritances weren't weak, they couldn't attract Lin Feng's attention. Now, Lin Feng was only interested in the immortal scriptures or some extremely heaven-defying divine abilities. He wasn't interested in the other inheritances. However, Lin Feng didn't need them. It didn't mean that others didn't need them. In the future, he could reward these divine ability inheritances to others. There were also many other kinds of things. Lin Feng just glanced at them and didn't pay any more attention to them. Then, Lin Feng's spiritual will invaded the storage rings left behind by the experts who died in the Dead Souls prison. Those experts were all titled gods back then, so their strength was also extremely tyrannical. Many titled gods were experts of the true immortal realm. These experts would definitely have left behind a lot of good things. Some of these storage rings were damaged, but most of them were intact. Lin Feng naturally found a lot of good things in these storage rings. There were about 30 different kinds of immortal level treasures. This made Lin Feng very happy. Now, Lin Feng had collected dozens of immortal level treasures, except for some that he needed. The rest of the immortal level treasures could be given to his women for protection. If he could collect more immortal level treasures, he could form an elite team. Each of them would be given an immortal level treasure. Then, how terrifying would the combat power of this team be? Just thinking about it made one's hair stand on end. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that if he wanted to realize this dream, it would be impossible in a short period of time. Apart from these immortal items, there were also various immortal stones, natural treasures, and so on. It was also unimaginable. Besides, Lin Feng also obtained an evil scripture that was equivalent to an immortal scripture, and a devil scripture that was equivalent to an immortal scripture. This evil scripture was called the Holy Dragon Evil Scripture. It was an evil scripture created by a supreme expert of the Dragon Clan. According to what was written on it, this supreme expert of the Dragon Clan was a creature born from the union of the Sacred Dragon Clan and the Evil Dragon Clan. The Sacred Dragon tribe had an extremely high status in the Dragon tribe. As for the Evil Dragon race, they were ostracized by many other dragon races. Therefore, possessing the Evil Dragon bloodline, this holy dragon had suffered a lot of humiliation since he was young. As such, this sacred dragon then left the Sacred Dragon Clan. From then on, he called himself the Evil Dragon. Later on, he created the supreme evil scripture, the Holy Dragon Evil Scripture. In a certain era, it was one of the most eye-catching inheritances. As for the other demonic scripture, it was called the Gloomy Demonic Scripture, a devil scripture created for the ancient god of darkness. Including the Holy Dragon Evil Scripture and the Devil Scripture of Darkness, these two inheritances were equivalent to immortal scriptures. Lin Feng had already obtained 9 inheritances that were equivalent to immortal scriptures. This made Lin Feng extremely happy. 9 inheritances. Any one of them was extremely heaven-defying. Of course, Lin Feng's understanding of the 9 immortal scriptures was not particularly deep at the moment. At most, it could only be considered as a beginner. But as time passed, Lin Feng believed that his cultivation of these immortal scriptures would definitely become deeper and deeper. At night, on an isolated island, a bonfire burned fiercely. Above the bonfire was barbecued meat that had already been roasted to a golden color. This was dragon meat. This was the dragon meat that Lin Feng had previously killed and then stored. Lin Feng took out fine wine and then used a dagger to cut off a piece of dragon meat. Eating and drinking at the same time, he really enjoyed it. If there were a few beauties by his side, that would be too blissful. At this moment, a few streams of light flew over from afar. Obviously, there were cultivators passing by. Lin Feng was not surprised. After all, during this period of time, there had been cultivators taking the risk to enter the weak water sea. There had been cultivators passing by before, but those cultivators did not stop. They were probably in a hurry to go deeper, to look for opportunities. So they did not want to waste time on the road. Lin Feng, on the other hand, was relaxed. If he could find an opportunity, of course it would be good. If he could not find an opportunity, it was fine. This time, Lin Feng came to solve the matter of the bracelet of misfortune. The bracelet of misfortune brought bad luck to Lin Feng and all kinds of curses on him. Lin Feng felt that it was also because of the bracelet of misfortune. Now that he had solved the bracelet of misfortune, perhaps his luck would change. This was a very important matter, because luck would play a great role in a cultivator's cultivation. If it were not for Lin Feng's own luck, Lin Feng, who was entangled with so many curses, would have died countless times. Lin Feng glanced at the group of people in the distance, and then continued to enjoy his food and wine. What Lin Feng did not expect was that the few cultivators passing by here actually landed. They probably saw that Lin Feng was alone, and it was a young cultivator, so they landed. If Lin Feng had a lot of people or looked very strong, they would not have rashly landed because they were worried that they would be schemed against. This kind of thing was very common in the world of cultivators. "Little brother, do you mind if we rest here for a while?" A beautiful woman in a red dress asked. This beautiful woman in a red dress had a voluptuous and sexy figure, fair skin, and fiery red lips. Her face was very beautiful. Her face was a kind of beauty that was full of charm. So this kind of beauty was very attractive to men. It was likely that many people who saw this charming beauty would have the urge to conquer her. Besides this seductive woman, there were 6 other cultivators, 2 female cultivators and 4 male cultivators. The other 2 female cultivators looked slightly younger and were very beautiful, but their figures were different. One of the female cultivators was very tall, about 185 meters tall. It was rare for a woman to be this tall. Her pair of long legs were straight and slender. The other woman was petite and dainty. She was about 1.6 meters tall, pure and lovely. As for the 4 male cultivators, they also looked quite young, but their cultivation was very strong. Lin Feng guessed that this should be an exploration team. Chapter 47:13. Lin Feng's gaze lingered on the beautiful woman for a while. Since these people wanted to rest here, Lin Feng naturally did not have any objections. Anyway, this place was not his. Not to mention, he could also admire 3 beauties with different styles. Why not? Lin Feng said, "Of course you can rest here. Everyone, take a seat." The beautiful woman looked at Lin Feng with a smile and said, "Thank you, little brother." Then the group sat around the bonfire. They took out spirit springs and spirit fruits to quench their thirst or appease their hunger. These things had relatively fewer impurities and were very beneficial for cultivation. Many people in the world of cultivators used these things to replace food. However, Lin Feng felt that these things could not completely replace food. At the very least, they could not replace meat. For a person who could not live without meat, eating these things every day was really a kind of torture. Everyone was eating to replenish their body's energy. However, the tempting meat aroma aroused the appetite of many people. Therefore, many pairs of eyes looked at the barbecued meat above the bonfire. This one is Nyo Kuin. How should I address this brother? Among the 4 male cultivators, the tall and burly young cultivator cupped his fists. He first introduced himself, then looked at Lin Feng and asked for Lin Feng's name. Ji. Lin Feng said. The other party guessed that Lin Feng's surname was Ji. In the world of cultivators, there were indeed many people who used their surname instead of their name. The main reason was that they did not want to cause trouble. Therefore, these people did not care. So it's Brother Ji. Nyo Kuin looked very enthusiastic and asked, Did Brother Ji enter the sea of weak water alone? Lin Feng said, I came in with a friend. However, something happened, and I got separated from my friend. Lin Feng said, Nyo Kuin said, This sea of weak water is very dangerous. If you move alone, it's really dangerous. Why don't Brother Ji move with us? This way, we can take care of each other. The beautiful woman smiled and said, That's right, little brother. Why don't you come with us? If we find any treasures, I guarantee that you will get a share. I'm not a little brother. Lin Feng looked at the beautiful woman and muttered in his heart. Of course, he didn't say this to the beautiful woman. Otherwise, he would become a hooligan. Lin Feng said, Thank you for your invitation. I'll gladly accept. In the future, I'll have to rely on everyone's care. Lin Feng could actually move alone, but in this vast sea, it was a little lonely to be alone. Lin Feng had a good impression of them. They appeared to be quite kind-hearted cultivators. Of course, another important reason was that there were 3 beauties in the group. She was charming and flirtatious. One of them was tall and charming. One of them was pure and lovely. Traveling with a few beauties would naturally add a lot of fun. Even if it was just looking at a few beauties, it was still pleasing to the eye. Actually, Lin Feng liked beautiful women. If his opponents were 7 tall and strong male cultivators, he wouldn't be able to resist them. If they sent an invitation to Lin Feng would reject them without hesitation. Ha ha, don't worry, we'll take care of you. If you encounter any danger, Brother Ji, stay close to this old bull. This old bull guarantees that I won't protect you. Nyo Kuin said with a smile. Lin Feng smiled and said, Thank you, Brother Nyo. Nyo Kuin grinned and said, Brother Ji, you're welcome. While speaking, Nyo Kuin glanced at the roasted meat that was emitting an enticing aroma. Lin Feng smiled and said, Brother Nyo, do you want to try my cooking? Okay. Nyo Kuin quickly nodded. Actually, Nyo Kuin wasn't someone who only ate spirit fruits and drank spirit spring water. However, when he was outside, he could only use spirit spring water and spirit fruits to quench his thirst. He didn't have the leisure to roast meat like Lin Feng. Moreover, Nyo Kuin had tried roasting meat before. That taste, thinking about it now, made him want to cry. Lin Feng's roasted meat was different. The aroma entered his stomach. Nyo Kuin had wanted to try it for a long time. Now that he heard Lin Feng invite him to try it, he was delighted. Naturally, he was overjoyed. Lin Feng cut a piece of roasted meat for Nyo Kuin. Nyo Kuin ate it, and his eyes immediately lit up. Then he wolfed down the meat. After so many days, he hadn't seen any meat. Suddenly eating such delicious roasted meat was simply an enjoyment. Gulp, gulp, gulp. The other 3 male cultivators couldn't help but swallow their saliva when they saw Nyo Kuin wolfing down the meat. One of them asked, Brother Nyo, how's the taste of the roasted meat? Is it good? Nyo Kuin replied vaguely, then continued to gnaw on the roasted meat. Brother Ji, can we have a taste? The 3 male cultivators looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and said, Of course you can. Don't stand on ceremony. Let's roast again after eating. Lin Feng stabbed the dagger into the roasted meat and told them to cut up as much as they could eat. Brother Ji is really forthright. The male cultivators complimented Lin Feng and sat in front of the bonfire. Then, they each cut a piece of roasted meat and ate it. Then, the three of them also wolfed down the meat as if they had never eaten before. At this moment, the three beauties seemed to have heard their own growls. Normally, they paid more attention to the details of their lives. Sometimes they would eat some meals. However, they ate carefully cooked meals. However, he never touched barbecued meat. In the eyes of many cultivators, roasted meat was not only unclean, but also had a lot of impurities. This was also the reason why they didn't touch roasted meat. Lin Feng looked at the three beauties and said, "Why don't you three have a taste? It won't affect your cultivation if you eat less." "Then why don't we have a taste?" the pure and pleasant female cultivator said. As she spoke, she looked at the beautiful woman and the tall female cultivator. The two of them nodded. Lin Feng personally cut a small piece of meat for each of them. When the three of them took their first bite, their eyes lit up. Delicious! It was really too delicious. They had never eaten anything so delicious, apart from the fact that it was delicious. The three of them also felt something. The roasted meat seemed to contain an extremely pure energy. Moreover, this energy was of an extremely high grade. What kind of roasted meat is this? The beautiful woman looked at Lin Feng curiously. "Dragon meat," Lin Feng said. "Brother Ji, you really know how to eat. You even dare to eat dragon meat. If the experts of the dragon race find out, they won't let you off. The dragon race is a race that seeks revenge for the smallest grievance." Niu Kun said. Lin Feng smiled and said, "It's fine. There are very few people who know that this is dragon meat. The dragon race won't find out." The three of them nodded and continued to eat the roasted meat in their hands. The three beauties originally only wanted to take a small bite. However, after the first bite, they couldn't control themselves. Although they didn't wolf down the meat like Niu Kun and the others. However, the speed at which they ate the roasted meat was extremely shocking. It didn't take long.